Everyone, and welcome back to the Mighty Mountain as we get ourselves ready for another couple of hours of fantastic racing. This one's going to be a bit of an entertaining thrill ride. We've got GT3s, we've got DTM cars as well. This one I'm sure is going to be a lot of fun. It's myself, Lewis McGlade, Ewan O'Leary and Cam Roger join us in the booth. Ewan, we're going to go to you first. We always love going racing around here. I mean, we were commentating on a race around here not very long ago, just a couple of days ago, and it always delivers.
Yeah, it absolutely does always deliver here at Bathurst. We've seen this obviously in real life and in sim racing as well. It's set to do the same here today as we prepare ourselves, I guess, for the real life Bathurst 12 hour, which is coming up here this weekend. 2-hour race here on RaceRoom. Very much looking forward to it. It's very simple format as well. 20 minutes in qualifying and then a nice 2-hour race. Let's see how what this throws up, because as you say, it's a really challenging circuit, but a really good one as well, making it one of the world's best, arguably.
It really is. I mean, we're here, of course, with the GT3s, and naturally it fits around this circuit, doesn't it, Cam? Yeah, it's one that we have a lot of fun with, a combination that really just matches. When you think of combinations in the sim racing and motorsport world, these are two which just piece together like a beautiful puzzle.
Yeah, they absolutely do. This track is so fast, but the GT3 cars are really the fastest cars you're going to want to race around here. It's very dangerous, especially this part here coming down the hill. It's so tight, so twisty. It's almost like a street circuit, but then the massive elevation changes you drop all the way down the mountain is pretty immense. And yeah, you wouldn't want to be doing anything faster than this. It's just the perfect sort of speed for this track.
We have seen some faster cars run around here, of course, back in the, well, I think it was the early 2010s. Jenson Button took the 2008 F1 car around here. You can see some of the drivers, of course. You had Georg Ortner there. We've got Latkovsky on there. We've got Ilya Drovosekov. I know he's quite popular within the community. We've got plenty of decent names, but it's kind of still one of those races. It's a bit hard to win, though, Ewan. You know, of course, we're not seeing the same level of strength of field that we would in a full-on championship where you're dealing with prize money left, right, and centre, but it is still one where a couple of great drivers do appear. I mean, Drovosekov's mighty fast. Latkovsky's been racing in the DTM and I believe both DTM and ADA GT Masters Esports Championships. Has a fair amount to go for.
Yeah, there is certainly a fair amount to go for here, and you say that it's going to be still difficult to win. It certainly is. I mean, driving, excuse me, even driving here for 2 hours on your own, just at full pace without making any mistake, is very, very difficult. It's not that not making mistakes is any more difficult here than normal, but the consequences for making one are obviously a lot higher around here, especially over the top of the mountain, than they would be in other places. So, yeah, it's still going to be very, very difficult to win. And it still is a very strong field as well. There's still a lot of big names that are going to be finding themselves up towards the front by the end of this race, you would imagine. And it's going to be very close. We're going to see some tasty battles, which we're, of course, looking forward to. So, yeah, let's see how it goes. Starting, of course, with qualifying, which is going to be a little bit important. You do want to stay out of the opening melee, which, well, I don't want to say is going to happen, but there's a chance it will. So you want to stay out of it as much as possible.
It's tricky indeed to find your way on you know, when it comes to track position in this qualifying session. It's so tight out there. We're seeing Daniel there kind of darting his way through each of the bits of GT3 traffic, just trying to find his way into some clean space, which is necessary for a circuit. We roll through Griffin's Bend here with Felipe, and there is some issues up ahead. Oh my goodness, that's Lee's laps. All of them are gone. You can't commit to the cutting, Cam, when you've got a car directly like that in the road.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right on the racing line as well. You really want to get over to the right-hand side of the track, open up the sort of the left-handed kink that's coming your way, and it's really a difficult sequence of corners. And yeah, all these guys really, these are just going to be banker laps now. These aren't going to be the fastest laps you're going to see. They're going to be obviously trying to just feel of the track, but then also with that incident in front of them, really just struggling to get the fastest laps down in this first sector. But really, these first laps, you just want to learn the grip of the track and see how that progresses as we get through to the latter parts of qualifying.
Well, we've got 16 minutes, so there is still plenty of time to do so, and I'd still recommend them just completing the laps. I don't know what car would be the preference around here. Drovosekov in the Merc does top the standings at the moment with a 202.186. The R8 typically around here, where they're quite an aggressive car, quite fun to throw around, but they can be very tricky. They can bite you, and around here, maybe you don't want a car that bites that hard. Latkovsky in another Merc goes into second position, just 7,000 behind Drovosekov. Let's see what Tara can do across the line. The time is good enough for 9th.
Yeah, not a bad lap time here. In terms of like what cars are going to be strongest, I guess we've got to look towards the qualifying procedure for this actual event. Don't make a mistake. We are in qualifying right now, but the qualifying to get into the event as a whole was topped by a couple of Mercedes at the front of the field, 1 and 2. Then there were a few Audis in the top 10 as well, a couple more Mercedes, even a Corvette, a BMW, Bentley. So it's quite open. But certainly I would say the Mercedes is the car to have, and Trevor Sekov is proving that right now. He is actually the driver with the fastest time from that pre-qualifying kind of thing before we got into this event, who's actually turned up here for this event. So expect to find this car up towards the front throughout the day, but also being challenged quite closely by those around him at the moment. So it's looking nice and close at the moment, as you say, only 7 thousandths at the moment.
Well, when it comes to the race, of course, it's a 2-hour race, so there's plenty of time for drivers to work their way up the order if they don't qualify so well. The last time I went racing around Bathurst on RaceRoom, it was in the DDF race, I think it was his 1,000 subscriber bet special, whatever it was back then. And Gail Gortner, who was on screen there, one of the drivers who I battled with, along with another member of the community, which you might recognise being Rob Wiesenmuller, and we all had a bit of a 3-way fight up and over the top, time and time again, in various little Formula 4s. It is one of those circuits which, when you get those little cars around here, you can have a bit of side-by-side over the top. I don't think we'll be seeing that today in these cars.
Yeah, these cars are a bit bigger. They take up a lot of space, and just in general, you sort of got to hustle them around a little bit. So yeah, the smaller cars are obviously preferential for that. But I think the main overtaking points of this track is this part here, down through the chase into the hard braking zone, into the sort of the chicane sequence. After this, you're going to see a lot of braking. It's such a long braking zone here. You can really sort of push your marks, outbrake someone, and get get up the inside of them and sort of push them a little bit wide, as we've seen a few times as well, before you get to this final corner, which is always an opportunity. And in months gone by, we have seen races lost here in this final corner.
Lukowski goes up onto pole position, then gets below the 202s with a 1.965. Fabrice crosses the line and is obviously at this point nowhere near those kind of times. They lost a lot of time in the middle sector, lost a lot of time in the final. You kind of expect as a driver to lose a fair amount of time in the middle sector unless you're very, very confident around here. You've got to get right up against the walls, almost to the point of you're leaving millimeters before grinding on it. It's a lot of fun when you're one with the car. It really is a mouth-watering prospect taking on such a circuit, Ewan. But sometimes we like to sit by the side and just watch and be like, "Oh, how close did he get to that? Well, that was fantastic."
Yeah, I think it's better to watch if I'm perfectly honest.
It's your win.
It's yeah, well, if you can say that if you like. But yeah, no, certainly. I find that you are right when you are at one with the car and you've got it all set up nicely. Bathurst is, and you're in the rhythm. Bathurst is a wonderful circuit to drive. It's very enjoyable. But when all of the things are not going your way, the tyres are getting old, you're starting to lose your rag with the car a little bit, and it's not performing the way you want it to. It's very frustrating as well. You find yourself bouncing off every wall you can possibly find. Well, I do anyway. So it can be very frustrating, especially over the top here. So yeah, it's one of those circuits really where you love it or hate it, depending on where you are. But a lot of people love Bathurst, and we certainly do, watching on as we're going to do today.
Well, it is the greatest racetrack on the planet, and no one can argue with that, right?
There's certainly a few options out there, to be honest, but this is actually proven really good. If you look in sort of the midfield, you've got really sort of a 10 to 2 tenths covering, sort of 10 to 17th place. There's going to be some really great battles up and down the field here, so don't just look at sort of just the top guys. Also, that midfield battle, I think, is going to be a really key point of this race.
I think we're just going to have a lot of fun. Gail Gortner then into the chase, hooks it up and over the curb. Lost a little bit of time in the first sector. Obviously, we saw Caneo's first sector there. He was 2 tenths up. Rolling through. There's a bit of a crash in the background with BMWs. Drova Sekov has just improved and has also gone into the 201s. Now it's just 12 thousandths of a second separated. Let's see what Ortner does across the line. Goes inside the top 10 with the 7th place, just behind Philippe Vigneron is 1/10 ahead of that. Then Rocco, Caneo, Drova Sekov and Latkovsky battling out for the pole. Pavel McConan in that Callaway. Would expect a little bit more, but either way, I think definitely a driver which we've seen in a lot of esports stuff. Probably would expect a top 5 from this session, yeah.
Yeah, let's see really, because there's a lot of good drivers in here, and it is very close, as Cam said there. I was just looking at the midfield as well, although it has all changed a little bit. But there's about 7 drivers separated by a tenth in there, so it is very close. And of course, 12 thousandths at the top of the field. I know you've already put your neck on the line, Lewis, off camera, and said, or off air, and said that Lavkovsky's going to win, definitely. But it's going to be a difficult challenge for anybody who's going to win today, as has already been evidenced by this qualifying session.
Yeah, I'll hold myself to that. I think Latkovsky should be on it. But the thing is Drovosekov is not that far behind. That's the critical thing here. And as they'll mash their way over the top again, Latkovsky is on for another decent lap time. Decent first sector. Lost a little bit comparatively in the second sector, but still improving comfortably. Could be a mid-1 based on the sectors we're seeing.
And coming up the chicane here, just 2 corners to go. This is such an important braking zone. You know you're on a good lap, and everything comes down to this one final corner. Don't go too far. He's actually weaving a little bit. I wonder if he's maybe just lost a bit of time there. Let's see if he goes for another lap. But coming out of the final corner, can he extend his time on the provisional pole position halfway through this qualifying session as he comes across the line? He didn't improve, but still a pretty good time.
I mean, it's decent to put it in. It's kind of pointless, if you're going to cross the line with a decent time, at least go a little bit faster. Come on, mate. With there being 5 minutes left in the session as well, they're not going to have too many more opportunities, Ewan. So maybe some drivers will return to pit lane to go out and get some fresh tyres on for the final half of this session. As we can see from Gail Gortner out there on some fresh tyres, looking to attack the circuit. We know once the timer hits 0, of course, as we've said time and time again, we say it every time, Ewan. When that timer hits 0, this session is over. We move straight into the race.
Yeah, it does help with the timing because we know when it's going to end instead of just waiting for everybody to come across the line all over again. So that does help us out a little bit. But yeah, it certainly does make it a bit of a rush around here, to be honest. It's obviously over a 2-minute lap, quite a long lap around here, technical of course, so it's you're not going to get too many laps in, and coming in at this time you're probably not going to be wanting to pit again if you're just leaving now, really, because you've got to do your out lap and then your flying laps. You might be able to get 3 more in the case of Royce Rocco here, just on the top of the mountain at this stage, although I believe this is a push lap at the moment, as evidenced by that first sector. Very strong so far, about a 10.5 up on the previous best, but going to need a little bit more than that to overtake Filippo Caneo in 3rd.
And yeah, I mean, there you go. Lost all that time in the second sector. I did kind of wonder, it looked a little bit dicey on the rear end coming down through the S's. We're seeing a lot of times going faster in that first sector, including this from Latkovsky. Now, that is a really good first and second sector. The second sector nearly matching the very best of the session, of course. 0.238, then 0.236. That's not adding on each sector. That's where it presently is as it crosses the second sector split, if memory serves. So looking to gain an extra couple of tenths and aiming for a 201.7. What can Cody Nikola Latkovsky do? Down towards the final corner at Murray's, across the line to start another lap here at Bathurst. And what is the lap time? It is an improvement, and he does move into an even stronger position for that pole, a 201.849.
And considering how close the times are, that could be quite important. Gaining a tenth is so difficult when you're at this level, when we've seen there's literally thousands of seconds between these drivers, between those 2 drivers at some point, and it just improves their place. They're quite a way ahead of the 3rd place, and even it's already a second back to 6th place. They're looking very strong as we come to the final couple of laps these drivers are going to get, considering it's so long around here.
Vigneron going through McPhillamy Park, not great in the first sector, so I don't think this will be a major improvement. They kind of seem to really need to nail that first sector. It's kind of where Latkovsky lost a fair amount of time over the previous, or rather before his fastest lap there. So, I mean, to be fair, you don't seem to need to challenge a pole position to move. We've got some tight gaps, not that one for pole, where you've got like a 10th back and then it's 6 tenths. Caneo's in a little bit of a world of his own. But then behind that, it is really quite tight. I mean, look at the gap, 1.5 seconds back, around 13th position. Vultric goes up into 10th place, 1.4 seconds off. But look at it, from Rizzo, 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, constantly. Then a few 1.5s, then we take a bit of a step to a 1.7. In that mid-pack, it is insanely tight.
Yeah, it's unbelievable at the moment. If we look at Tatari in 14th at the minute, only needs 1/10 of a second to get up to 9th, which is quite outrageous, really, especially when you're considering that is a top 10 position, and it really is that close this early on. So, very interesting midfield battle coming up. As you say, the battle for the win is certainly looking like it's going to be between Latkovsky and Drovosakov at this stage of the session. Trying to, speaking of Drovosakov, trying to improve here, but yeah, behind that, it really is going to be very, very close between everybody. And who knows if the two up front get into contact, or if they indeed slip up somewhere, then there'll be lots of drivers looking to take advantage of that. So it's going to be an interesting race. 2 hours though, of course. So even at that kind of length, you do have to pace yourself at a circuit like this.
You're expecting drama, Ewan, around Bathurst? Never.
Hoping for it, of course.
We always love a good bit of drama up here in the commentary booth. It's why we're sat here, because when you're a driver, sometimes you don't really want too much drama, especially when you're involved in it, Cam. So, yeah, I mean, we like drama. They don't.
Yeah, especially around this track, you just want to have a nice, calm, clean race. You don't want people spinning in front of you. You don't want to be sliding the car around yourself. It's really one of those tracks where you've got to be in the zone, in the confidence of the car. As we've seen Drovosakov here come around the final corner. Don't think it's going to be an improvement for him. It is actually in the final part of the lap, but I think he just about sort of went faster than his own time rather than challenging for that pole position. But yeah, let's see when he gets to the race, because obviously the drivers need to sort of have the extra fuel in the car and get the feel of that as Peter Daniel comes across the line, and he's going to stay there in 7th place.
Yeah, losing a bit of time in that final sector, has to again, and that's it. I think that could be session done. Sorry, I thought we got lost a bit there. That could be session done either way for that Bentley, because obviously with there only being 4 minutes left the session, the time it will take to complete this lap, the time it will take to complete the next lap as well, that'll be it, Ewan. You won't have time to actually set another proper time lap.
Yeah, no, so time's running out for these guys to actually start a final lap time. Filippo Caneo here is going to get another chance, and he looks like he's going to need it by the looks of the middle sector there. I think that's the time gap to his personal best, isn't it? The plus, or is that the gap to the leader? Don't know. But anyway, he is going to get another chance either way with 3 minutes to go here, and you can see just in the background there, they're almost queuing up to have one final go at this in the qualifying session. But at this stage, they've been out there for quite a long time. Some of them beginning to reach their maximum, really. I mean, for example, Latkovsky has actually gone quicker than he went to qualify for this event by nearly half a second. So clearly he didn't put much effort in to qualify, and now he is putting the effort in. He's on pole. As I say, some of these guys will be reaching their limit at this stage, but there's still a little bit of a chance for anybody on a lap right now to maybe improve just those final few positions.
Well, Caneo's session comes to a close, just 3rd on the road for Caneo, but did manage to improve a little bit by a few hundredths of a second over that final lap. Here is Pippert down towards the final corner in that Callaway. I do love a good Callaway. Some people don't really like that rear wing because it obviously bends down on the sides. I just think it looks, again, the cool kids would say it looks sick, fam.
Yeah, it certainly does, and it's one of those cars, unfortunately, that's not already used in real life anymore, because obviously the newer CH chassis has come out, but he's going to be away from this session as well. And yeah, good to see the old cars come out, but also the more newer cars like this Audi R8 as Vertrick coming down into the final corner for the last time in his session. 13th place currently, sort of doing a couple of improvements in this first and second sector. How will he do across the line? Down to 14th place, someone's pipped him, but he then goes back up into 12th.
Also interesting to see only the single Ferrari of Alexandra, who's sat in 7th position as we go back to another one of these Callaways. Vigneroli down 31st position, the final spot of our grouping. Kind of makes me wonder what is possible for them to achieve. The Callaway's not looking super strong. Rocco is in 4th place in one and looking all right. When you consider the contingent that we have in the Callaways, there's not too many high up, Ewan, really challenging apart from Rocco and maybe Pavel McConan.
No, yeah, not really, but I do feel like that car does have the potential within it to actually win today if it's in the right hands. I just think that those two in the Mercedes are just going to be too good by the looks of this qualifying session. I think that's very obvious for everyone to see. at this stage. But the Corvette is still very much on for a strong result. Would not be a surprise at all to see Rocco up on the podium by the end of today, or indeed some of the others a little bit further down as well. But just look at some of these guys jumping up towards the end, like Ahmed Hakim getting up into 12th place with that very final lap time of the session.
Yeah, Sokovikov as well did manage to jump up into 8th position. It was a late improvement from Felipe, who got up into 3rd. Latkovsky and Drobosekov, though, the front row of the grid, and really the stars of the show in that qualifying session.
Absolutely, they've got a little bit of jump on the field, at least in qualifying pace. We'll have to see how that translates into race pace. Of course, it's slightly different driving style, a lot more weight in the car as well, and a bit of a strategy with tyres to be thought of as well. So yeah, looking a bit further down the field, you can just see how close it is. So many drivers in sort of the high 2s and low 2-minute 3 part of the timing sheets before we get all the way down to the bottom. See, it's a really close field here in the top split of this Bathurst 2 hours.
We expect it to be tight. We always kind of expect it to be a bit of a tight session, mid-pack especially in the front. We always, we've done these ranked events a few times, obviously doing the 2.4 hours of Spa, 2.4 hours at the Nürburgring as well. We know what they're kind of like. There's always the top 2 that run away, but respectfully to them, it's not normally where the entertainment lies in a race like this year, and it's normally down in that mid-pack, which just gets very spicy.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, I remember doing the Daytona 2.4 hour earlier on this year, and there was some battles up towards the front, especially in some of the lower categories. I think GT3 was probably the best battle for the lead, but in the DP category and GT as well, there were some great battles in the midfield, not necessarily for the race victory. We sort of seen this at Spa last year as well. So, yeah, it's going to be good. There's going to be plenty of stuff to be watching over the next 2 hours. There's no doubt about that. But whether it is the battle for the win or not remains to be seen. We'll see those 2 on the front. If anybody can challenge them, it would be a big surprise. Drobosekov and Latkovsky have probably got this race to themselves. But that in itself is going to be an exciting battle.
Well, here we go then for the 2 hours at Bathurst here on RaceRoom, as we'll get ourselves underway. Drobosekov on the right-hand side of your shot, Latkovsky on the pole position. We're underway here at Bathurst as we race our way down towards Hell Corner. It's a great start, though, from Drobosekov, who's got to the inside and does manage to take the lead of the race down now up the hill on the mountain straight, rising up through the gears, getting it perfectly. Caneo also attacking the background as he goes side by side with Felipe, who's lost out at the first corner. Vigneron dropping backwards, Alexandra dropping forwards in that Alpha Tauri Ferrari as he marches way up the order. The side-by-side between the 2R race on the run into to Griffin 10. Absolutely superb start, though, from Latkovsky, as there's an R8 round in the background. Not sure which one it was Voltring.
Yeah, it looks like it. This is exactly why we said in qualifying you need to be up towards the front, because you avoid stuff like that. You're all going on there, and he's still going on just outside the cutting here. Ortner going side by side with Akeem by the looks of things through Reed Park now. They sort themselves out, but yeah, outside the top 15 or so, it was a bit messy down at turn 2.
Yeah, tight stuff indeed, Cam. I mean, when you're racing, when you're going 2 or 3 wide, you never really want to give up any bit of track position, certainly not at this part of the race. You really want to go on the attack as they head through McPhillamy Park and pick up a bit of grass and dirt on the exit, which will just affect them on the run down the hill.
Absolutely, it gets so tight through certain parts of this lap, as you can see here also coming through into the elbow. We've got this battle for 3rd and 4th place. Ruud Philippe trying to get on the back of Filippo Caneo, getting very close between the 2 Audi R8s there. And as you can see, it just gets quite thin at certain points of this track. The tarmac isn't so wide, being so old school, but let's see how the slipstream is now coming towards the chase. That's a second Audi there, Felipe getting the run, going towards the inside. This will turn to the outside, though, as we get towards the chicane, so he might just have to back out of that one, which I think he just about has, lifting off just a little bit, but he goes to the other side, dives it down the inside, side by side into the chicane. Tiny bit of contact between the 2. Round the outside, they're going to go side by side towards the final corner, but Caneo holds on.
Brilliant little effort between the 2. I mean, Felipe obviously struggling at the start of this race. We roll back towards Peter Daniel, who's done the up and under to get down the inside of the Callaway of Rocco. Obviously got to focus on Sokovikov. Oh, that's a little bit too deep, though, from Rocco. And that has allowed Daniels through. That has allowed Sokovikov through, and Pavel Makonnen as Rocco's dropping backwards. Georg Ortner's going to be the next one to march his way through and up inside the top 10 in that Merc. So one mistake, one little lock up down in towards the final corner at Murray's, and you've gone straight on into the barrier and dropped a whole heap of position here.
Yeah, any kind of mistake at this early stage will shuffle you back so many places. Look at the basically train going on all the way down the field here as Keane tries to follow Ortner through on Rocco, who's having a double start, has to be said, after qualifying in 5th place. It's all going downhill, I'm afraid, for the best performing Corvette so far, or best performing Corvette in qualifying, I should say. So yeah, you do want to clean things up, especially on this opening lap. But I have to say, it's Lankowski who's really stolen the march in the opening moments of this race. We're expecting Drovosikov to stick with him a lot closer than he is at the moment, but already 1.1 or so seconds for the Macedonian. There it is, coming in through McPhillamy now.
Drovosikov is not leaving anything on the track at the moment, was really exceeding track limits coming up through McPhillamy Park as we ride on board with the Swiss driver down the hill, going through the likes of the Dipper, now down into Forest at Elbow, hooking up that late apex. It was maybe a little bit too deep there from Latkowski, just opening the door for a little bit of time to be gained from the Mercedes behind, but Drovosikov just not quite close enough to take too much advantage of the slipstream, and we're not even 5 minutes into the race and Latkowski is already starting to run away.
Yeah, they need to make sure they're closing that gap down, not letting him get too comfortable out the front. Once you get in that zone, once you get in that rhythm, it makes it quite difficult to attack those types of drivers later on. Latkowski is one of those drivers who can really sort of hold on in those situations and keep control of the race, which is what he's going to want to do as we get sort of into this opening part of the race when sort of everyone's spreading out. He wants to keep that position, make sure he's holding on.
And Ferrari, Bathurst has made a decent amount of progress as well. Started from, I believe, 7th spot, now up inside the top 5. Kind of going through the order. I do like the AlphaTauri Ferrari. It's a good little livery that works on that car. Of course, from the DTM pack rather than just the standard GT3Rs, which, you know, I'm all about. You, and I'm sure you have a very different opinion. We don't tend to agree on too much when it comes to liveries and such.
Just expecting me to disagree with you. No, I do like it. I do like the. I'm a bit puzzled, to be honest, why Alexander has chosen the Ferrari. First of all, he's the only one in the field. They're not particularly well represented up towards the front in pre-qualifying. He was only 50th in pre-qualifying, by the way, but he's really overperforming. Well, you could say overperforming if you like, or just doing well in the top 5 at the moment. But he pre-qualified with a Corvette. That's how he got in, and now he's using a Ferrari. So who knows? No, I do like the livery here as well. It is nice, and he's doing very well with it. Top 5.
I can't believe I agree with someone who would rather have a pie over a barbecue, but you know, each to their own. But
that wasn't me.
Don't you start? Of course it was. That is a very you and O'Leary thing to say there as we go back. I'm just throwing him under the bus. The poor lad. Oh, that alley was very wide there and straight into the barrier. That'll be Martin.
And now it's going to be a heavy crash as well. We see this multiple times, fastest part of the track. I mean, it's even sort of towards 200 kilometers an hour for these cars. And that's a Mercedes of Zabdir that's gone off actually in the end, now down to 27th place. Fortunately, the cars behind him have had a few issues in this opening part of the race, and he's going to have probably some damage and a lot of work to come back from that.
Yeah, when we first looked at that, Merc, I almost thought it was going to be Drovosikov. I started to have a bit of a heart attack, but obviously just where they were. Georg Ortner trying to find a way past on Pavel McCone and straight to the inside. It's almost too deep on the brakes. That was a lovely move. No, it wasn't. It was too deep on the brakes. I'll go with my first opinion. A little bit too far there from Ortner, who does know a fair amount about racing. Of course, worked behind the scenes for a long time. That was a little bit of a squeeze, though, as Akeem is pushed onto the grass a little bit by Royce Rocco. A dicey little bit of racing.
Yeah, very dicey indeed. Squeezing his car in quite a small gap, as to be said there, Akeem, but he tried to make that all work. Couldn't quite. And we'll have to stay in 12th position. But yeah, Ortner's going to be looking to just try again, really, on Mukkonen by the looks of things, for that 9th position. We've seen this yesterday, Lewis. I know it kind of dawned on me as I was watching the race yesterday how bumpy it is on the inside of the chase. You think it's kind of just normal. You just got to watch out for that curb. It does get very bumpy, and you can see quite a lot of accidents if you're not careful coming down that hill.
We were watching some side-by-side there as we were seeing some side-by-side there. That's Bouchard sent absolutely out to the wall by Schubeck. That was not the nicest move, if I've ever seen one. And Bert has also come through into 17th. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is quite bumpy. If you're holding a too tight line, if you're too shallow on entry into it, not only are you pushed out by the slightly off-camber nature of the corner, but also by some of those bumps on the inside, they can cause some very serious issues. I mean, these are real roads to a certain degree. I mean, they are real roads. There's no certain degree about it. They just factually are, even though we were having a bit of a discussion on this a couple of days ago. They get used frequently, and it is bumpy.
They absolutely do, and especially when you have these big sort of heavy machinery under the braking, you can really see how long the braking zone is. They really dig into the tarmac, and over time as well, that can also imprint a little bit into the sort of the rails almost on the road. But obviously this chicane was added quite a while ago now, but it's almost a bit of an afterthought. You just go straight down in towards the final corner. So let's see Lekowski leading the way now, and he's starting to get a little bit comfortable at the front.
I just can't believe you call it a chicane.
Well, it effectively is.
It kind of is.
Do you not think it is? It's a left into a right.
Yeah, but not really. That's not a chicane, mate.
You don't think that's a chicane?
That thing that they were doing in Miami, that go-kart chicane, that's a chicane. That is not really. I would not classify that as a chicane.
We've had a change of position here actually on the screen.
But that's like saying that the final the final corner and the first corner, that's a hairpin. Because they come back on themselves.
Not quite.
Well, no, it's the same kind of thing. It's because the right and the left, they're too far apart. You couldn't classify that as the chicane.
Well,
Ewan, help.
No, I'm not helping you. Cam's right.
oh yes.
But yeah, I mean, it also this on the screen at the minute, the battle for third is just getting back on topic a little bit. Felipe losing that, getting through on Canao for third. This all Audi battle.
Yeah, I mean, it is very, very tight, of course. Fourth place at the moment. Fifth, too far down the road of Vigneron to really attack for this. So it's just Audi on Audi for that final spot on the podium battle. We'll go down the order, though, into eighth. Sokovikov, who's trying to attack Peter Daniel. Vigneron is ahead of this as well. Is that Vigneron that's directly ahead of this group, or is it? Oh yeah, it is, because Alexander's too far ahead. See, this is I'm getting way ahead of myself. Tight little battle for what is fifth position or fourth position on the track, but it's nothing's really happening at the moment. They're all being afforded a fair amount of time to breathe right now, which I think you really need around Bathurst.
Yeah, you absolutely do. It's getting so close between some of these guys here. Almost a full-car train here, as we see Ortner trying to work his way up even further inside the top 10 now. Currently in that 10th position in his Mercedes-Benz, trying to get the slipstream all the way down this back straight. It is so long, you can really get a nice toe down in towards the chicane after the chase that we're going to see here. Ortner looking towards the inside, but not close enough this time around, but just making himself big in the mirrors, and especially with that yellow machine that he's driving, that is certainly going to be quite bright.
Now, I will say it, we're going to have it in chat. I think we should have a chicane or not in chat. Everyone else can help us out here, because these two that I'm sharing with in the commentary booth, I'm not so sure I believe in their judgment as to what defines as a corner. But, each to their own. But, I just completely disagree. Vigneron is under a lot of pressure here by that mighty Bentley. It is absolutely massive, sat on the rear end of a car which is not exactly small in the form of that AMG. As soon as he pulls out of that slipstream, though, Ewan, there is no way that Bentley is marching forward.
Yeah, it's like hitting a brick wall. Really can't get anywhere. That Bentley, famous for straight down speed, of course, but not particularly on that occasion. Coming into Griffin's Bend, so he's going to have to stick behind. It'll be a brave move at the cutting, and we might see something a little bit later. But not for now. It's too early in the race for that kind of thing. Although it does look like Vigneron is struggling a little bit in terms of, well, certainly in relation to the two cars behind. As I say that, Sokovikov looks like he's had some big problems through repark and drops way back now, possibly towards his compatriot Buchanan just a second back.
Well, yeah, again, let's see if Daniel can make a move at any point. The thing is, you've got to use a long straight, right? There are two very long ones around here. You've got the Conrod straight and you've got the Mountain straight. I fear that the best chances for Daniel is going to come on the Conrod straight into the definitely not a chicane, the chase. But with it carrying such a long run as well down a hill cam, there's just no real momentum that's being caught. The last corner being so slow, obviously Forest Elbow, you just don't really have that opportunity. You can see it here. It's nowhere near.
Absolutely. It's actually quite difficult to gain time in that corner before into the elbow. It's such a difficult corner because the one before it is sort of like an almost little chicane sequence as well. You're sort of flicking through. You've got to be so delicate on the braking zone into that elbow corner. It's really difficult to get on the power again. So yeah, you've got to nail it if you want to make an overtake. And actually, because of this battle a little bit behind, we've now got Akeem coming up on the back of them. They drops behind them by a few seconds now. Is actually Orner goes a little bit wide then. It's actually going to be making up that position as now we're actually going to be getting Akeem going towards the inside, towards the first corner as well. So both Mercedes might be able to get through here, actually up inside the top 10 as we're getting a bit of a bumping here coming up the first straight.
Yeah, it was Akeem who was looking to the inside. Pavel McConan was too focused on it and then went a little bit wide, and now Pavel McConan has to worry about Akeem once more, who was trying to look onto the grass, looking back, looking to the inside, coming into Griffin's Bend. It'd have to be a bit of a send to throw it in there, but Pavel McConan, with all of his esports experience, plenty enough to hold that Mercedes at bay. And the Callaway, the highest placed Callaway in the race, in that 10th place at the moment, goes in way too deep into the cutting. And I know you're not really going to get any side-by-side over the top of the mountain, Ewan, but still, I think if he keeps making mistakes like that, he's not going to be a million miles away from expecting it.
That was very close as well to the wall through that right-hander there, just shaving every millimetre off this racetrack as he possibly can at this stage, pushing as hard as possible. But sometimes less is more, it has to be said, around here. If you do just take it back a step, then you can actually get into a nicer rhythm and go a little bit quicker in the end. But anyway, he's getting dropped quite quickly as now Akeem gets into the wall just a little bit down the dipper there. Not ideal, but Ortner's certainly getting away from the both of them now. After getting through, it's not taken him long to put a second into, as you say, the best performing Corvette. Mainly because Rocco clearly has been in the pit lane somewhere, because he's down in 29th all of a sudden.
I think he might be out of the race based on the fact that he's got exactly the same gap as Bissett. I think there might be some form of technical issue. There you go. There is Royce Rocco. Kind of only thought about that, yeah, as you were kind of looking, as here comes a little bit of side-by-side again. Alexandra keeping Vigneron at bay. Daniel, part of the battle as well. 5th, 6th, 7th place on the grid. The BMW of Sokovikov that was closing in. It was right there. It's dropped off. It's closing back in again, down into Murray's. Quite a little fight, this one.
Certainly is. 4 different car manufacturers as well, so they're all going to have their slightly different parts of the track where they're going to be sort of benefiting from their car choices. But now, as we come up the straight, let's see who's got the best top straight line speed. Certainly, it's quite a difficult corner to overtake here up and towards turn 2. It's very difficult on the brakes because the brake sort of dips away and comes back up, and it's all sort of all over the place. This is a corner where you really want to, you can potentially try and overtake, but you've got to get it down towards that curb. If you go wide there, you're just going into the wall. You have to keep it towards that curb to get the best speed here, coming up towards the cutting and into the mountain sequence. But certainly very close between these two drivers, and you know that just some point they're going to be just battling once we get down towards the chase.
Which isn't a chicane.
Who says
although I am reading in chat, quite a few of you can agree that it is kind of a chicane, which I'm very disappointed in.
Lewis is wrong. Let's go.
I know. I don't like the idea, but again. Do you like? What about Pineapple Pete? No, we're not going down. We're not going down this road.
No.
We're not going down this road. We've got far too much racing to focus on before we start having big arguments in the commentary booth. And Ewan would lose. Sokovikov, though, the focus of our attention right now. He's 8th in the line. Do love seeing a bit of the M6 out on circuit. I know you're a bit more of a Z4 fan, which each to their own. I do love myself a bit of the M6.
Yeah, I know you do. I don't know. So it's better than the M8,
car,
though.
by the way, not the motorway.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Whatever. If you're in England, that might make sense, but I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's not as good as the Z4. No BMW ever will be. But it's all right. It's definitely better than the M8 they've got at the minute, which is horrendous.
Do you prefer the M4 over the M8?
Oh, sorry, I meant the M4.
Okay.
Brain, sorry.
Nice one. Top tier effort right there. Either way, again, still the battle for 5th place. Latkovsky's pulled out 2.5 seconds. Drovosekov, who in turn has pulled out 2.5 seconds over Felipe. But Felipe Caneo still pretty close for the 3rd place position at the moment. Just a few tenths separating the two Audis as they pulled a further 5 seconds clear of this battle. Alexander Vigneron and then Daniel and Sokovikov between 5th and 8th place. Then, of course, you've got Georg Ortner and Pavel McConan. Pavel McConan's been off the road a couple of times, and he's still keeping Akeem at bay.
Yeah, we're seeing these the sort of splinter just a little bit, top two going on, as you say, then the little groups behind, sort of forming their own battles, which is great to see. We did mention in the qualifying just how close it is, and just look at this, coming out towards turn 2. We got 2 by 2. Who is going to come out on top there? We're looking to George Georgiev in this sort of third place battle, as we're seeing some side by side up ahead, and once again you go wide, and you're going to continue to be side by side, as we've got Bouchard going back behind Andres.
Yeah, a good little move there, to be fair. A great little move from Georgiev to absolutely send it in to get the move done on Bathurst there, down into Griffins, out though into the barrier. You don't really want to be touching it there. You don't really want to be touching at any point around the circuit, but less so over the top as it gets tight and tight as we head through Sullivan Park. They get so close to this barrier on the what is the left-hand side of the shot, right-hand side of the circuit, looking backwards from Henrik Andreasen as he's got his countryman in Bouchard behind, Georgiev and then Bathurst all in the battle for 19th position. The harder they fight, the bigger the gap will get between themselves and Hussein, who's sat in 18th spot.
Yeah, that gap is continuing to grow at about 4 seconds now, as my goodness me, that was close between everybody coming down into the chase, and Vigneron tries to stick his nose down the inside into the left-hander, but can't do it. He's exposed himself to Petter Daniel now as well, who's going to be on the outside line into the final corner, although won't be going through there. Yeah, Alexander certainly had his hands full there, trying to keep Vigneron behind, and Daniel is trying to get through on the Frenchman now as well. But nothing doing into turn number 1. That was very close battling through the chase, but no incidents, thankfully, but no positional change either.
Yeah, I don't know how they're all still really kind of alive after that. You go for a bit of side-by-side there late like that, when you're seeing cars kind of, what it seemed like 4 cars out of control. Eamon Akeem, who was battling with Pavel McConan, is down the road. Now, is that a solo mistake? Very possible to do at Hell Corner, but it is also very possible it was assisted.
He was so close to the apex though. I doubt he sort of dropped on the exit. I think there might have been a bit of contact there, as he's going to be losing another position here, almost up the inside. Grinning, just thinking about it, but not diving it there. Yeah, and I do expect Akeem was possibly helped there, possibly with McConan, as we were saying earlier. So hopefully he's going to be able to get back up to speed. It looks like he's just still a little bit not quite in the rhythm as he's starting to go wide as we come up the mountain.
Again, every time they do it, every time they fire their way over the top, it is risk versus reward, and they are playing the fine line at the moment. This is the closest battle up the order, where it's Felipe and Caneo still very tight indeed in those 2 Audi R8s, but there's just no opportunity for Felipe Caneo to make anything stick. I do believe it is also not that it really matters because they should both be the same, but a GT3R or GTR, I can't remember which way around we do it, but the regular GT3s that we've had on the RaceRoom service for a while versus one of the DTM GT3s, which whether you agree that they should have stayed with the Class 1 regulations or moved over to GT3s, I think either way we do get at least some spicy new liveries here and in the GT3 categories here on RaceRoom.
Yeah, that is I suppose a positive. They probably shouldn't have changed it to a GT3 category, if I'm honest. But anyway,
I agree with you, mate.
Yeah. Well, wow.
Oh, Cam's shaking his head here, mate.
It was a good decision. The Class 1 was losing some teams, and now obviously they're going to be back, and sort of with bigger grids and some new teams, new drivers, new manufacturers in over the course of the next few years. So I think it's probably a good thing for the greater good.
Well, Class 1s were cool.
Class 1s were pretty.
They were cool, and also it just makes it just another GT3 championship, as if we don't have enough already out in the real world.
Pros and cons of everything.
But they do have those hand kicks rather than the Pirellis, which means they are super quick in comparison. But that's like the only reason. You're absolutely right. It is a GT3 category. We'll not rip too much into DTM though, because I think they were they were in spot. And I love it. I do always enjoy watching it. Some great drivers on those on their grids. But I like Class 1s for being just super
crazy,
unique, absolutely insane. And when you compare them to something like Super GT and stuff for the GT500 category, it's always a lot of fun. Kind of when you see a car like that, you always think it'd be good to take one of those around somewhere like Bathurst. I don't know about you, Ewan. I'd certainly give it a go.
Well, yeah, hopefully not in real life, because that would be it'd be very scary. But yeah, it'd be great fun to have in a DTM car around here. I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll happen some sort of exhibition in the future. I don't know.
Oh yeah, like I said, we've taken F1 cars
Exactly.
Around here, so who knows?
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed. But anyway.
I mean, I'll see any car driving around here in exhibition mode, and I'm sure we'd have a lot of fun. Obviously, the McLaren, I can't remember which one it was because it was, I always forget. I think it was the MP4. Nope. Yep. See, as soon as I've started, I'm like, nope. Don't know which one it was. The 2008 McLaren, though, the Jensen Button took around here. So they've taken F1 cars around here. I'm pretty sure they can wrestle with the idea of taking something fancy like this. To be fair, DTM probably has been wrestled around here time and time again, and especially back in the Class A days when it was all the same.
Yeah, but so the different types of cars that have been around here over the years is actually pretty immense. But the fact that we can still come here with this modern machinery is great. It hasn't really had to change too much over the years to keep up with these modern machineries because it's such a historic track. It's obviously one of those that could have been changed and lost all the character, and it's great that it's kept that, and it's really kept the sort of motivation for the drivers to come back every year and really attack the mountain.
I'd attack it in anything, mate. A touring car, a GT here.
1 litre up the hill, flat out.
Yeah, okay, maybe not. Maybe not. I did get taken around the Nordschleifer in a mate's. I'm pretty sure it was a 1.5 litre Mazda 3, and it was
fast.
It was quite lacking going up the hill. So I'm assuming it would be in the same vein taking a car of that quality around here. I'm sure it would be very entertaining, especially once gravity takes over. Obviously the most powerful engine that we have. That'd be a lot of fun coming downhill. What car would you like to see around here?
As you said, anything in exhibition mode is certainly it's certainly fun to watch because, as you say, just the challenge of this circuit, and yeah, like Cam says, I'm very glad that they haven't kind of FIA'd it, if I can say that, because they've kind of kept its character, and it's also some of its danger as well, which it keeps its charm. But yeah, anything really in exhibition mode, as you say, is good to watch around here as we're doing right now.
Indeed. We'll ride on board with Rizzo going into the chase once again. I'm still determined to battle off the corner that it's not a chicane. He's on the rear end of Pippert, and Fabrice is also kind of there or thereabouts, kind of checked out from this battle. Oh, as there is the straight line. Akeem once again having further issues, rejoined with now losing the position to Grunning, now also losing the position to Bernd, who's come through in that BMW. Hoysayman as well, not too far away. I think Akeem's having a couple of issues, a little bit of a wiggle as well from Bernd, and I mean, I don't know if that Merc is having problems of Akeem. We saw it backwards to T1 and we now saw it straight line the chase. I don't think it's particularly comfortable right now.
No, it certainly isn't. It's one of those sort of snowball effects. When you start going backwards, you have to keep your mindset in the game. You have to keep on focusing going forward and not really think about the things that happen. He has lost about sort of 10 or seconds to that fight that he was in. However, he still has these positions right in front of him, as we're actually seeing a little bit of a side-by-side there with Bernd. BMW just thinking about it coming up towards the cutting, but certainly for Hakimi, one of those parts of the track or parts of the race, I should say, where he really needs to just, nail down and find his focus again.
But just remember as well, whilst we're watching all of this racing, we've got the ranked RaceRoom Championship as well beginning soon, which unfortunately, if you're bored of our voices, we'll have to put up with a fair amount once again, because we'll be covering it to certain degrees. I think me and Ewan are doing the first couple of races, and then you and Ewan will take over for a couple more. Me and you throughout. I don't fully remember what we agree with on our schedule, but yes, you'll have to put up with us. Of course, it's open for registration. To which there was should be the link. So we got a bit of side-by-side here as Vigneron trying to get the move done on Alexander. A little bit of a brush between the two. They continue it down to the apex at the chase. A little bit too much curving on the right-hand side though from Vigneron, and it is Alexander who is able to hang on. But I mean, if you want to be involved in race like this, I'd go and get yourself signed up. And also that trailer was awesome, Ewan.
Yeah, it certainly was, and yeah, I think over 2,000 people already have. So yeah, you should join them and get in on the ranked action that is coming up soon. But yeah, this action at the moment, absolutely fantastic racing once again into the chicane. Bit of shoulder rubbing between Alexander and Vigneron. I have to say, I do feel like that Ferrari possibly the slowest out of these four at the minute. But Petter Daniel's applying so much pressure to Guillaume Vigneron at the moment that it's actually kind of taking some pressure off of the Ferrari right now. So that is all very helpful to the Portuguese driver out front. Although Daniel going for it at the cutting, my goodness, this is narrow and just about Vigneron able to slot that car right round the outside, keep it out the wall and keep on in 6th position. But Daniel looking especially aggressive at the moment and trying to get through.
Oh, boy. Oh, that's a big moment from Peter Daniel out onto the grass as well. Oh my goodness, he was pushing it to the very limit there. Going through the likes of Quarry Bend and up through Frog Hollow and stuff. Georgiev and Akeem also battling out for 20th. Akeem going backwards once more. I think he's having some very serious issues as there he is. That also won't help. That was a pretty sizable bonk on the rear end, and you can see that car is in a suboptimal way.
Certainly is. He's going to not be enjoying his race so far in the opening half an hour of this 2 hours of Bathurst here on RaceRoom. And yeah, obviously up in that top 10 in the first parts of the race, really batting for some good positions, but this just shows you how quickly it can turn around. But obviously this is more of a a fun one-off event when we have this whole ranked championship coming your way that is going to be really great to get involved with. And it's not just this one race, you can prove yourself over the course of the season.
Which I love the idea of. I mean, we like ourselves a bit of ranked racing or racing in general. And if you want to get yourselves involved, obviously we said sign-ups are open. Over 2,000 people have already jumped onto it. But to be fair, even if you just want to go and do yourselves a bit of racing and get on, there is the chance to do so. RaceRoom is available for free on Steam. You can go get yourselves a starter pack as well. They're not that expensive to jump on, and you can just get yourself started in the sim racing world, and maybe you could be the next likes of Moritz Lerner or Florian Haase, anyone like that, or maybe you'll be the next commentator that starts with sim racing, gets slightly jaded, and then joins us in the commentary booth, or maybe you go the way of Ewan, which is joining the commentary booth as he is now before he returns to sim racing glory by winning every championship, right, mate?
I won't be doing that. But you're right. I did never start not a sim racing career on PC anyway. So I guess it doesn't really count, does it? So yeah, I mean, you could do it my way if you want, but not ideal.
Suboptimal, some would say. Either way, they can now make pit stops. We're in the middle hour of the race, so they can come in for a stop. I think we will expect it more so towards the hour point. Before they come into the pit lane to service their cars. Obviously, with it being an hour long, should be able to get an hour stint out of the car. But with the ranked racing though, Cam, we've got 3 different little races happening in there. We'll be broadcasting it all over in one evening. Should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely should be. So there's going to be sort of 3 different classes over the course of the event. So you can get yourself involved not just with 3 cars, but also the GT4s and the BMW M235is. We're getting some side-by-side action in these GT3 cars coming down towards the chase. Up the inside for Sokovikov, up into that 7th place, but actually coming back at him. Down the inside is going to be Daniel. He's going to be taking that position back through the chicane. And unfortunately, Sokovikov there back down into 8th place.
Yeah, and a great little test between the two of them as they battle their way around. Again, you're always going to try and fight it out, especially once you've kind of accepted that maybe the leaders have sort of run away just a touch and you're only involved in your own little battle. But either way, they've dropped off the back of Vigneron, they've dropped off the back of Alexandra, who seems to be a bit more secured within that 5th position. So they're just fighting amongst themselves here at the moment, Ewan.
Yeah, I mean, ever since Daniel made that attempt on Vigneron at the cutting, has been falling back a little bit into the clutches of Sokovikov now, and really, once that pressure has been applied, the group has almost been split into a couple of pairs. So not ideal for those two, but they'll look to get back to that battle for 5th place soon, and I think they will do. Just as I said a little bit earlier, I do think Alexander is possibly the slowest out of the 4 of them, and could well find himself at the back of that train before very long. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff going on a little bit further down as well, as you can see here. Olivia Burnt, has been trying to get through on Huiseman at the moment, but well, recently been overtaken actually, hasn't he? Because Andreasen was chasing the South African not long ago, but now Burnt has dropped a place down to 17th and in the clutches of Andreasen now himself.
I think a couple of them maybe burnt out their tyres ever so slightly. There's a little bit of a touch of the barrier though from Oliver Burnt. Just brushing it slightly going up the hill. I mean, we can see the odd brush every now and then, but a big bit of contact, I think that would pretty much end your day.
Certainly would. It's one of those parts of the track really where you want to use all of that road, but you know, if you hit that wall, it's just going to be sort of game over for yourself, because if you're coming back from damage at this track, it is certainly very difficult indeed. You need such a planted car. And just to let you know, the sort of red symbol but next to their names, that will change once they have made their pit stop, just for your information. When we get to that point later in the race, we're seeing this battle continue. Daniel's still holding on for 7th place.
Yeah, they can pit now, of course. I mean, they could pit at any point, but if they pitted now, it would tick off the required stop. Problem is, though, is that you just don't want to do it too early. An hour and 26 minutes would be slightly too long. I've seen them do around about an hour and 10. It is entirely possible, depending on the circuit that you do. It was one of the defining strategies when we did the Nürburgring 2.4. I think actually some of them did about closer to an hour and 20 minutes. I don't think we'll see that too much today. Track position is king after all, and you wouldn't want to pit too early and then get dropped back in traffic. Latkovsky leading by 5 seconds. I think he will take this as far, Ewan, as the fuel tank will go. There he is, just so in control right now.
Yeah, I don't see any reason for him to come in early. He'd just be running this tank dry and then going to the end on the next little bit of fuel. Make sure he gets his calculations right, and then he'll be well on his way. But yeah, over 5 seconds of a gap is a bit of a surprise to see at this stage in the race, given how close qualifying was. But it seems that Drovasekov was able to stick with him for one lap, but in terms of sticking with him over the 50 or so that we're going to get here in this race, yeah, much more challenging, as he's finding out right now. The best thing he can hope for is a mistake from Latkovsky up in front. Otherwise, I don't think he's going to be caught.
I would kind of say that the Portuguese driver of Felipe is potentially closing in ever so slightly. There he is in that Audi R8. Whilst the gap was originally, this is kind of thinking more percentage terms of closing up, because of course it was an even gap between Latkovsky, Drovasekov and Felipe. They're kind of separated by 3 seconds and then 3 seconds, the gap between first and second, and then second and third. And I kind of wonder if now that gap's kind of gone out by 5 seconds, but then the gap hasn't really changed too much between second and third, if that gap's going to come down. Either way, we'll go back down the order. Alexander potentially going from one Portuguese driver to another, losing out here, but still managed to keep the Frenchman Vigneron behind.
Yeah, the second part of that chicane is really good to...
It's not a chicane, mate. I know what you're doing.
So basically, it's really good to sort of have a battle through that sequence of corners, because you can go side by side through it, because it's sort of made really nicely with the way you have the kink to the right and then the braking zone and the corner to the left. Really adds in some good battles. There's him and Michaela Rizza here trying to go around the outside. He's going to be onto the curb, and he's actually going to be having Schubert coming up the inside of him. I'm actually thinking about coming inside as they come across the line in towards turn number 1. Pepert just up ahead of them. This battle's really starting to rage on now, with a couple of guys catching up behind as well.
Yeah, got Grunigan, that big Bentley right on the rear end, and then a couple of the M6s as well, with Huiseman and Burnt closing in. And we know from looking at that battle earlier on, Andreasen's not exactly a million miles away from the rear end of it. So this drain could grow quite drastically, as there's a bit of a squeeze there from Rizzo going around the outside. That's a big send there from Schubach, and that one was not going to work in a month of Sundays, but he did give it a good go. I think we can all respect him for that, Ian.
Yeah, we absolutely can, but as you say, it wasn't ever going to work. The camber of that corner there really does lend itself to those on the inside line. You need to be ahead probably going into turn 2 really to make it work on the outside line there, and being level alongside was not enough for Schubach to get through as expected. So Grunig is here as well as Huiseman now as well, by the looks of things, although no, he did that. Is that a lap car in between? Possibly. Looks like it. Quite possibly there's somebody in the middle there, but possibly Zebediah. Yeah, there we are, in the middle. But yeah, as you say, Huiseman, Bird, Andreasen all catching in. You can just see them in the background there. And yeah, Zabdir trying to would probably like him to get out of the way soon, especially Grunig, who's trying to get involved but can't at the minute.
I mean, he's doing a great job of being right in the middle of this battle in ways that the group do not want him there. Just kind of sat there. I mean, realistically speaking, he's got the pace. I think he's a bit frustrated, obviously, with how his days have begun. An hour and 20 minutes. Just wants to go out there and have at least a little bit of entertainment. But unfortunately for Zabdir, just stuck in the middle there. Clearly has the pace to keep up because he's not exactly just disappeared over the top, dropped back for them. So he can still be there, but he's just more of a nuisance to a couple of those drivers towards the back end of the 10.
And that's the frustrating part for him. He lost that time earlier on in the race. He's now a lap down, and realistically speaking, he's not going to get that lap back on pure pace. So he's able to stay with these drivers, but he's not able to overtake and put away. So that's a big send in towards turn number 1. Rizzo gets up the inside there, and Pippert goes down a place. He's flashing because he knew that was a bit of an aggressive move there as Rizzo tries to defend up to turn 2.
That was touring car level of movement there. Michele Rizzo trying to defend now, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be afforded the same level of move because the irritation, oh goodness me, it happens again. Schubeck looks to the inside of Pippert and now squeezes off to the exit of Griffin's Bend. I think Pippert might be sat there thinking, who have I irritated in a previous life to have deserved that level of dive bomb down into T1? As now he gets rubbed as well, and now big crash. He's going to go into the barrier, and that is also the spin for Schubeck as well. The two of them coming to blows a couple of times. I kind of feel that it might have been Schubeck into the rear there of Pippert, and then eventually being spun around by him, which I don't know about you. I'm kind of, I think maybe that was God's law. If you're going to rub someone on the rear end going up the mountain, it's probably not going to go well.
Probably not. I mean, I don't really know how to call that one, if I'm honest, but one thing I can be sure about is that Pippert is going to be furious about the way this last lap has gone. First of all the way down at turn 1, of course, starting with that dive bomb from Rizzo, he will certainly have felt that was out of order, and that was not really on down into turn number 1. I mean, we saw it fairly late on, so it's hard to know really whether it was on or not, but it certainly looked like quite a big dive. There was certainly another big dive from Schubeck into Griffin's Bend, and then obviously the contact, and Pippert losing out on even more places. So yeah, he's just going to be really unhappy with how this lap has gone, and to cap it all off, he's going to be under pressure from Heutzmann into the chase.
That was another good look for a big send indeed, which I feel bad for Pippert now. I've had a lap like this in my sim racing where for some reason everyone's just thought, oh right, you look like a mug and I'm going to dive down the inside at every opportunity, and you just start thinking, please, I just need to get back into the rhythm. As soon as you can hit the rhythm, you're fine, and then you can pull away from them. But when you're getting dived left, right and centre, it's rough.
Yeah, difficult part is in this type of race, obviously the overtakes don't come every single lap, so when the opportunity comes there, you've got to take it. And then obviously Pippert was then out in a difficult situation, and the other guys behind then took their opportunity to get past as well, with him being slowed down a little bit. And it's just, one of those situations where you have to stay on top of these opportunities that you get, because they are few and far between sometimes in certain points of the race when you're in these groups of so tightly packed drivers. We saw in qualifying just how close all these guys are in terms of qualifying pace, and it seems like that's translating to the race pace as well, such as how close this field is looking at the moment.
When you have groups that are that close, you tend to battle more, which means you lose more time, right? And that's the thing here. And when you're in a little group and you're all fighting over each other, that's where the big classes ahead kind of pull away, and then you start to panic and think, no, actually I could be a part of that, I've got a pace to be a part of that group, and then suddenly you're battling even harder. This battle is coming back together again as Alexandra does have to worry about Vigneron, but that Ferrari does seem to be pokey in a straight line. Certainly once it gets down onto the brakes as well, it seems to be fairly well balanced, but this time for Vigneron way ahead before they get into the chase. The big send again from the Ferrari, a little bit of a contact. We've seen this one before, copy and paste from the last few laps, and the Ferrari somehow keeps holding on.
Yeah, it's not particularly great in a straight line, but the braking performance is absolutely fantastic into the chase there. He was able to hold off Vigneron into there that time. Didn't give an awful lot of room, but maybe just enough. Certainly held up the Mercedes through that final section of corners. And it's allowed Petter Daniel to get up into 6th place without too much of an argument, really. So Kovikov is now here as well in this fight. So yeah, that's all getting very close once again for 5th place. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Once these guys all do start fighting in these big groups, the gaps do continue to get bigger. I mean, I know Latkovsky is quick, but you wouldn't have said if they're hot lapping, Pippa probably wouldn't be 49.5 seconds behind him after only 45 minutes, just less than. You know, he's not losing more than a second a lap, most likely, just hot lapping. Part of that is down to the battles that are going on, and those at the front are not having to undertake some of these battles that are happening very fiercely further down the order.
Well, there are fresh eyes behind Alexandra, including the entirety. I don't know what's happened there to Alexandra. I was going to say, I'm going to give a big speech about how it's now Daniel behind him at Bentley, and now maybe we'll see a move. I don't know what's happened, but we've seen them drop backwards because Alexandra's now in 7th place, behind Daniel, behind Sokovikov, and guess who's directly behind him? Poor Vigneron, sat there thinking, are you kidding me? As soon as I drop back, 2 people get past.
Yeah, this battle's remained the same basically, and they just moved back a couple of positions, so it's going to continue, I'm sure. And as we were mentioning, the Ferrari seems so good on the brakes, or at least Alexandra, he's so confident on the brakes in that car, at least, that he can come back from the top speed of those Mercedes behind him. Is Ortner now. We saw him a little bit early, getting up inside the top 10. He's been behind this battle for a while, but now, because of all the swappings of positions in the last couple of laps, he's really caught back up. So look out for him to jump up these places as we're getting towards this mid part of the race.
I do really like Ortner. He's a good lad. He's a good laugh. It works. The last actual LAN event that I ever did in sim racing, I was a commentator. This was on RaceRoom at the where we were in Friedrichshafen, and a great driver, and we're kind of seeing it again. A big dive down the inside. So Alexander has booked his ticket to depart Bathurst and drop completely backwards down the field. As now that was a nice little move from Ortner, but he doesn't have to worry about the Ferrari with those superior brakes on the run into Hell Corner. Ortner's in a little bit too wide. Once again, the Ferrari does hang on, but I don't think it'll be too long before Ortner's able to make that one up.
No, I don't think so. That Ferrari is starting to fall back through the field, obviously fighting off so well for the first 40 minutes in this race, but once one came through, then the rest of them are coming through indeed fairly quickly afterwards. Not entirely sure what happened at the cutting a couple of laps ago now, but clearly something went on. I don't really know, because Vigneron found himself out behind Alexander again, and that might be a clue. He goes wide into the second part once again there, does Alexander. Ortner goes through once more, but yeah, very puzzling as to what happened there, although one thing we can say for sure is that he is down to 9th and continues to fall back.
I mean, either way, great little look. And finally, Georg Ortner has made that. So I'll say finally, it was only after a couple of attempts. Alexander, I don't know what's happened. Maybe it was I mean, we've kind of had it in races, Cam, where we've fought so hard for position. Suddenly, as soon as you lose one, oh, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one. You start just hemorrhaging positions. You can't get back into the rhythm.
Yeah, you got to keep on top of it. It's the difficult part of racing in general is being able to come back from those sorts of mini defeats within the overall race. It's certainly a difficult one for these guys to get used to, and as we've seen there with not just him, a couple of drivers, Akeem as well, he's dropped down. He's currently back down in 22nd place as well. So yeah, it can happen to the best of them, as you want to be in your rhythm. But let's see, Petr Daniel now down the inside of Sokovikov. Actually, it's the other way around, isn't it? Sokovikov trying to get back up to that position. Daniel defending and keeping that 5th place for this moment in time. But this battle continues as these guys move up the field.
It's only because Sokovikov went way too deep into the chase, really, and so the mighty Bentley is able to hang on. But again, everyone's queuing up for a little go at the gun show, and Daniel under pressure from Sokovikov, Vigneron, Ortner and Alexandra all in this train, because as much as that Ferrari's dropped backwards is still a key factor in this battle for 5th place rather.
Yeah, it's just hanging around at this. I do feel like it's falling back. I'm going to continue to do so, but still, yeah, still involved, sort of. Involved with Ortner here into turn 2, although I think it would be a little bit silly to go for a move at this stage. So we'll stay behind. But yes, all very interesting for 5th at the minute. And Petr Daniel, all of a sudden, is becoming the cork in the bottle. I actually thought he was the quickest out of the original four that we were seeing battling over this 5th place. But all of a sudden, now he's at the front. He's coming under a lot of pressure, especially down the straight. I thought the Bentley would be able to hold off the BMW a bit better down Conrad Straight last time, but Sokovikov gave it a really good go into the chase. Just wasn't quite able to pull it off.
I mean, yeah, it's just It's not quite as fast and straight as we would necessarily expect from a Bentley, and it doesn't have the legs to keep the train at bay. Obviously, the slipstream is quite large, and it also doesn't just come down to the necessarily down to the straight line speed. It's all about the exit as well off Forest Elbow as we come here. This makes so much difference. You know, it can make 5-10k difference once you get down to the end of Comrade.
Yeah, with the way the power of the gears was, it's also about the acceleration, how fast you get to that top speed as well, not just the sort of peak that car can do. And the interesting part for Alexander now is obviously he didn't have the top speed. He wasn't able to defend in terms of that, but he could on the brakes. Whereas now it's the other way around. Now he's behind people. Will he have the top speed to even get side by side enough to then outbrake them? That's going to be a difficult.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not just about getting there for close enough for a dive bomb. It's about putting yourself in position to actually make a move. For example, Griffin's Bend. You can get alongside of Griffin's Bend. That's not a problem. Getting past though, very, very different, because if you can get alongside by just not really braking and trying to go around the outside, it's just not going to work. You know, we've seen time and time again people really throwing it in very late into Griffin's Bend, and it just doesn't work. The Ferrari in the background as well of Alexandra also attacking Ortner, who's not quite closed in to get the slipstream assist off of Vigneron.
Not quite just yet, and probably needs it, especially down into turn 2. As there's another look there from the BMW, but no way through. Vigneron now getting very close himself and will begin to apply pressure, or indeed just wait. I certainly would just be waiting at this stage, because we're not too far away from the pit stop cycle, surely, and these guys being able to make it to the end. When we get to about 65 minutes to go, I do feel like we are going to see somebody attempting something. Is the undercut going to be worth anything around here? Obviously, we've lost a few cars now. There's a bit more space out there on circuit. We've lost maybe 4 or 5. A little bit more space out on circuit. If you can find yourself a bit of clean air, a couple of new tyres on, and you might be able to do something. And in this group where some of these guys are finding it quite difficult to get through, they might decide that the early pit stop is the call.
The thing is, though, the issue with the early pit stop is naturally, if you come in for that early stop, you're likely to have to deal with traffic. And we've dealt with the idea that overtaking around here is not particularly the easiest task, and it could cause its problems.
It certainly could. The strategy in these races is quite important, really, because you have that one pit stop, that one chance to make up your position, or even lose positions. As you're saying, especially if you're out the front, you definitely want to just stay as long as possible. You don't want to go back behind any sort of slower traffic from the car behind. The issue is when you're out the front, generally you're going the quickest. Generally you don't have any slipstream, so you're going to be using more fuel potentially than some of the drivers around you. So that is the difficult part. And also because the track is so long, saving a whole lap worth of fuel is obviously a lot more volume than you would on other tracks.
Absolutely. I remember once you decided that fuel was time related or something. I remember on a broadcast on BBC, I think it was at the very, very early hours of the morning. And I just remember sat there thinking, is Cam right? Is it, can you take a tank for an hour? Is it more about time rather than, and I was like, no, obviously it's about how far you can take the tank on distance. But I just remember our late night broadcasts where we've had to go through long shifts of difficulty. Either way, focusing on the race at hand, I kind of think they'll go as far as the tank will let them. I think they are going to push this as far as they can, which could be towards the 55 to 50 minute left to go in the race, maybe even for some a couple further than that. You know, when you're coming down the hill, you can save so much fuel. You don't quite realise it, and how much you can get away with, because once you come over Skyline, you can effectively not really touch full throttle until way after the dipper. And even then, you're only on throttle until the kink just before Forest Hill, at which point you lift off, you balance the car through the corner, you're just breathing on the brake, pulling the car back to the inside, then finally, bam, you're back on power. But for that whole sequence, you've barely been touching the pedal, despite going very quickly.
Yeah, no, it's not only is it down here, it's very, very steep as well, in case you've never been, which I'm presuming most people who are awake at this time of day probably haven't, because obviously European, but yeah, it's a very, very steep downhill as well. And gravity is going to help you an awful long way. As you say, over Skyline there, you can just lift off nicely. And even when you're on a push lap, to be quite honest, when you go over Skyline and into the dipper, you don't really get on full throttle anyway for quite a while. So you do save a little bit there. However, there are long stretches of full throttle at this circuit. Of course, the final part of the lap and the first part of the lap are very much kind of brake, turn and go, kind of very simple 90-degree corners, which are not particularly efficient, and there's obviously long stretches as well, which are not particularly helpful. But yeah, you're right. You can save quite a bit. However, I do think, to your point, I think you are right. We are going to see these guys run the tanks dry. I know I started this whole conversation about the undercuts, but I do think they're going to run the tanks dry effectively because, after all, as well, it's all about lap time, and you keep the lowest fuel for longer in doing it that way. If you pit early, then you're leaving fuel in the tank now, which is possible time, and also you'll have more in than those guys who haven't pitted yet. So you do ideally want to run the tanks dry, really.
Sorry, you covering your bases, yeah. You
This is both options.
This is the whole thing of when I was on that broadcast with Arjuna. I said one of three things is going to happen in this battle. Either they're going to close up, they're going to spread apart, or gaps going to stay the same. And I remember after finishing it, I was like, I mean, it's a great point because it is 100% accurate, but also it's one of the stupidest things I've ever said in the broadcast.
Yeah. It's certainly the more obvious thing, but the main point really for going longer is Johan's touching on there. You're going to have a shorter pit stop as well, which is going to obviously save you time. It's going to be a side-by-side action as you come up towards the cutting. Racing there in 16th place, just behind Bern. These guys have sort of battled a couple times already throughout the race. Perperta's actually dropped down behind these guys over the course of the race, lost seconds there, but these guys need to just watch out because they are starting to get a bit of a gap in front of them to P14 Huysman, so they've got to be making sure they're not losing too much time if they want to get back up further inside that top 15.
Well, a good little, again, another good little look. You've got to give it a go sometimes into the cutting, but it's a brave one. You've got to be there. That's the critical thing. They've got to potentially have made a mistake down into Griffin's Bend, and you must have nailed it to leave yourself slightly alongside before you get even into the braking zone, because you touch the brakes a couple of times going into the cutting. At first, more of a lift rather than a tap of the brakes, but sometimes you might just tap it to balance the car, then settle it, then brake again for the actual main corner of the cutting. It's such a difficult but rewarding section as we race our way towards the halfway point and continue to look at this battle for fifth place. Daniel Sokovikov at present battling very, very tight indeed. A little way back, of course, Vigneron is sat there looming in the distance. That Ferrari, though, I will say, Alexander, seemed to have a little second burst of pace, a second wind here, and doesn't seem like it's lasted very long, though, because he is starting to drop back off again.
No, he is starting to drop off. You can see Ortner there, a couple of seconds up the road already. And I do just wonder if maybe the tyre's fallen away from him ever so slightly. As I mentioned, Alexander didn't pre-qualify all that well, only 50th in the standings, but has really done a good job in the first part of this race, using the only Ferrari of anybody as well, which is good to see a different manufacturer out there. But unfortunately, it does look like he's tailing off here towards the end of the stint. Be interesting to see whether this happens again towards the end of the second hour in this race, and then we can really start to draw our own conclusions, or whether this is just a bit of a bad moment for him, because we didn't see what happened, but you've got to think that whatever did happen will have unsettled him a little bit, and that might be playing into the lack of pace at the moment as well, in the high threes at the moment.
So when you get knocked out of the rhythm, it can really throw you off. It's a rhythm-based circuit. Of course, you've got the straights. It's kind of one of those weird ones where I can't even describe it. You go through the straights, you go through Comrod, then you get down into the chase, you go through the final corner, you go for the first corner, a hell corner, then back up the hill towards Mountain Straight, and all that time, you've got so much time to reset yourself mentally, and yet somehow you just still don't, it's still super rhythm-based, because I don't know about you, Cam, but once I start going over the top, you don't really think about it. You just kind of almost take a deep breath, and you're just like, right, and for the next 40 seconds, I am millimetres away from walls, as there's a bit of a moment from Pipette, but you're leaving absolutely nothing, you're dodging between it, and then finally you come out of this corner, and it's like, and I can breathe now.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, most of this track is straight line. which is quite interesting
Ridiculous.
considering how obviously everyone raves about the mountain so much, because it is one of the the best sections in the world, a very unique section in the riders. It looks like we're getting a pit stop come in. Felipe is coming into the pit lane. You're going to see him change to that Vigneron, I should say, coming in. You're going to see him change to that green icon when he comes out as well, and that is just before the hour mark. So that's quite interesting, because that means he's going to have to potentially save a little bit of fuel, because he needs to go to about 7 minutes longer in total by the time he gets to the end of the race.
You were right, by the way. Felipe was in the pit lane, fourth place he was running. Fourth place.
Third.
In that tight battle with Caneo as well.
Yeah, he was third indeed. He got through
Third,
Caneo. He was challenging for second. This is why I think he's done it, because is he close enough to Drovosakov to actually really make an impression here? Is that why he's coming quite so early? Although once again, as we were speaking about earlier, it's a lot of traffic about. Akeem is just in front of him at the moment, but he has got 4 seconds, but he's still going to erode that gap quite quickly, you'd imagine. So yeah, I do just wonder if that is a ploy to try and jump that Mercedes for a second place, or whether he literally is struggling for fuel, because if he is, that's very concerning.
Oh yeah, if that's a fuel issue, then
I don't think it is, but I don't think it is, but if so, concerning.
Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to stay with us for the next 62 minutes as we'll continue our run on the 2 hours of Bathurst. I mean, for me, it's a risky strategy, pitting early to try and go and get the undercut. You're asking for no traffic and perfect laps, two things which are both not in high abundance around here.
Firstly, no, he is about Felipe is 4 seconds behind. Vigneron has quite a bit of a gap in front, but certainly you'd expect Felipe maybe to close up on those guys as well. We'll have to find out. As we're going to be a side-by-side action now. Coming towards the chase, Grunig and Huysman going side-by-side. Who is going to come out on top at the moment? It's going to be Huysman on the outside of this second half. He's going to hold on into that 11th place. He's actually been making up some good positions over the course of the race. He was lowered down, sort of 15th, 16th place. Just been getting up those places, currently in that 11th position.
Bit of effort again. We love these little battles that seem to just grow every time we look at them. As you say, Andreasen isn't too far behind in the hard lay battle, and more they become a part of it with an hour and a minute left. These are the kind of trains, Ewan, where if I was the last car in it, this is where I pit and try and get an undercut, because you might not be able to jump everyone in this queue, but you will probably jump one or two of them.
Yeah, I mean, Byrne is the final driver in this train at the moment. He's actually got Zabdiri up in front of him again in this fight. He's in the middle of a train again, so I would certainly agree with you, and I'd certainly be in at the end of this. Well, I'll probably be in last lap, if I'm honest, at the site of this train. But he seems to be pretty happy to stay in that for the moment and just ride it out for now. Yeah, it's going to be one of those interesting ones to watch through the second half of this race. There's plenty of them, especially in the midfield. Obviously, you've got that battle for the top 5 position as well, and there's some outside of the top 10 as we were just seeing there. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how that develops over the second half of the race. But things are going to get very messy over the next 10 minutes or so, with the pit stops getting the cars kind of all out of position for the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, just to clarify, by the way, if you are seeing a minute at the top of at the top of your screen, there is still an hour and a minute left to go in this race. Back with Peter Daniel onto the brakes again to keep that M6 at bay of Sokovikov as we tick past and into the final hour of runnings in the Bathurst 2 hour. And Peter Daniel takes that opportunity to dive it straight on the pit lane, splitting the race exactly into halves, 50-50. Which is a strategy I actually don't like. I don't agree with. I like to, like I say, go a little bit longer or go a little bit short. Do something different. Because if you copy everyone else, you know what's going to happen.
And the important point is, obviously, it was a standing start. We started bang on 2 hours to go. Whereas when we get to the 0 marker, there may be an extra lap or so, maybe, of where it works out. You've sort of got to do a whole extra lap as well, if it's sort of within a couple of seconds. So it's going to be very close. With a couple of those drivers potentially on the old fuel side of things, but I'm sure they know what they're doing. But loads of drivers coming in, actually. Plenty of drivers coming in, doing that strategy. And really, it's the one that makes the most sense, because they probably all have sort of run out of fuel by this point in the race. They probably aren't able to go that extra lap.
say most people into the lane. Does kind of cause a couple of concerns for the likes of Felipe if most are coming in halfway through the race, of course pitting close to about the hour 5 mark, but still very busy pit lane. Felipe passes most of that contingent, and obviously still a fair few out on circuit yet to stop. Pippert and Bouchard battling now what is 8th position on the road, a minute 15 off of your race leader, about 10 seconds clear of Felipe. So not actually realistically for position for Felipe, and should have plenty of time to work into.
Well, this has worked out quite well for Guillaume Vigneron, I've got to say, because Ortner was not too far behind it. He certainly wasn't this far back. The last time we saw that battle, so has the Frenchman catapulted himself ahead of Sokovikov as well in this fight. I don't know where Petter Daniels miles back as well. So Daniels had an awful pit stop by the looks of things. Vigneron's had a great stop. Ortner has lost out a little bit. Well, he's lost out to one car and gained on another. So it's all a bit all over the place at the moment, as we're seeing even a worse time for Rizzo a little bit further down, speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, solid F. I mean, me and Cam once commentated on a race not too long ago where someone got a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And then what happened next, Cam?
Got a drive-through penalty, serving the penalty.
And then what happened next?
And then he did it a third time as well, I believe. Yeah, and there was one that we did as well. I think it was me, Zach and Ewan, when we did the 2.4 hours of Daytona. The entry, the pit lane there is very difficult indeed, and there was plenty of speeding in the pit lanes, which you don't want to do here as it's quite long. But side by side through the chase, this is going to Bouchard. Is he going to get up into that 8th place? Yes, he has miles ahead by the time we get towards the chicane as he's come around the final corner for another time. Hasn't stopped yet. You would assume they're going to be coming in. No, he's going to stay out for an extra lap, saving that fuel in his Corvette machine, but the car behind him does go in.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like I say, if you've kind of sat behind a car for a fair while, it's given you the opportunity to save a little bit of fuel. And I know some of them won't require the stop. I mean, like I said, for the Nord Cypher, I'm 99% sure we had a couple of teams go round for potentially even up to an hour and 20 minutes. It is possible to kind of stretch for an extra 5 or 6 as Georg Ortner completely misses the apex there, going through the legendary, well-known chicane of the chase. I'm bringing it back. I'm just going to rip into you a little bit more on that one. That's fine. Even though most people agree with you, so I'm sort of sat. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. It's all good. Either way, missing the apex and losing himself a fair amount of time.
Yeah, unfortunately, pushing hard though, and needs to. Sokovikov looks like he has lost out, and Daniel as well is going to be side by side. See if Daniel gets through. It doesn't look like it. So a really poor stop for the Bentley. Not entirely sure quite why he's lost so much time, but for whatever reason he has. Filippo Caneo has got quite a lot closer to Rui Felipe by the looks of things, as the leaders now come in. I think Latkowski and Drobosekov are both into the pit lane, and Burchard surely is going to have to do the same as well, because we're nearly 65 minutes into this race. Don't tell me that. Tell me that's a repeat, please, because Rizzo looks like he's done it again.
That's not the commentator's curse. We brought it up. We said that it had happened before, and it's just happened in this one. A drive-through penalty when serving a drive-through penalty. I kind of brought it up. You, Arjuna Kakapati asked you on a broadcast not too long ago about what is rule number 1 of motorsport and sim racing, which I then said there is about 90 rule number 1s. He was alluding to the one that's don't hit your teammate, but I'm pretty sure not speeding in the pit lane, serving a penalty for speeding in a pit lane is pretty high on the list of rule number 1s, Cam.
It certainly is. It's sort of the basics, really. I mean, obviously, it does sound a little bit harsh, really, with Rizzo there, but certainly it can be, it's easily done, because it's one of those things for speeding in the pit lane, you're going to gain a few tenths. So the other way, you slow down a little bit more, you lose a few tenths, and then you don't get a penalty. As we're going to get a bit of action here coming out of the pit lane. Hopefully, that's going to be a bit of side-by-side, because Bouchard is actually staying out for another lap, going well past the 55 minutes mark, over an hour and 5, and he's going to effectively take this second position, with Drobosekov going down to third.
And I don't know about you, Ewan. Oh, he's run way too wide now towards the barrier. That should be Drobosekov coming straight back through again. Obviously going to fight a little bit up towards the cutting. That gap between Drobosekov and Latkowski down now to 1.5 seconds. I wonder if that's just going to grow straight back up and balloon as it did over the first stint.
We're not really sure, but it's certainly come down by about 10 seconds less than it was before. It was approaching 10 seconds, the gap, and they almost came out nose to tail there. So I don't quite know what they've done to be able to do that. But Felipe is all of a sudden very close to Travis Sikov is very close to Latkovsky at this stage. Just looking up and down to see everybody else, because the gaps between have they all gained maybe on Latkovsky? It certainly seems like the top 5 have gained. I know Bershard is there at the moment and will not be in a few moments, but it certainly seems like the whole top 5 has gained on Latkovsky. I'm not entirely sure why. Kind of thinking about whether have they taken 2 tyres where he's taken 4. Not really sure. But yeah, they're all a lot closer to the lead.
I mean, maybe he were actually burnt a lot more fuel over that stint than everyone else as they'd come in. They came in with still a few litres left in the tank, and they didn't have to fill the tank to its maximum. Meanwhile, Latkovsky maybe had to fill up the entirety of it, courtesy of being so fast. It didn't seem like it was long enough for it to account for an extra couple of tyres, or a 2-tyre stop from the base.
As Berchard goes around again, but yeah, that's a second here or there. Maybe you say, oh, he took the pit entry a bit more, a bit slower, didn't risk anything. But yeah, when it's multiple seconds, there's certainly been something just a little bit different in the actual pit stop itself. Is Sokofikov here in this what is currently 8th place. He's actually lost out, as we're saying, in this pit stop sequence. He's gone down behind Orner's, made his way up to 7th place. That will be 6th place by the time Berchard comes in. So we're starting to get really sort of nice battles working their way up here inside the top 10. Daniel also lost out a bit in that pit stop sequence, but these drivers are so close. A couple of seconds here and there can really make a huge difference.
Oh, a bit of a snap there as well from Heiseman on the rear end of Andreas, and obviously it's so easy to sort of lose it just by a touch. It did seem like a little bit of a snap. Some light rear locking, more so just balance. Obviously connection could be a fair shout in it as well. Of course, racing from South Africa still. We know what it's like through the chase. You can get a bit light on the rear end. You can just unbalance and unsettle the car, even in something as stable as the M6, Ewan.
Yeah, it's a very stable car, but you do still have to watch yourself coming through the chase. I have to say, yeah, it's great to see a different nation up towards the front of one of these races, isn't it? Because I know this is the European split, but the time zones in Africa, I mean most of Africa anyway, makes it very reasonable to race at this time. And it's normally Europeans everywhere in these races, so glad to see South Africa being represented by Heiseman, and represented very well inside the top 15 at the moment, giving Andreasen quite a hard time as you saw into the chase last time around.
We do have quite a few good South African sim races, of course. I mean, Dave Carell doesn't really do too much sim racing, but obviously does have his influences in the sim racing community, courtesy of the leagues and such that he runs. But then Jordan Sherratt and the like, all real-world drivers, South Africans that take part in sim racing. So it's a well-represented group. I will say, speaking of well represented, we do have a very well represented grid in general from top to bottom. That's a nice colourful tower. Typically we do see, this is not me having a dig or anything, but yeah, there's typically like a lot of Germans, a lot of Hungarians that race, which is great. We love to see it, but it is also nice to see the diversity we've got.
Absolutely, and there's so many different sort of slightly different nationalities that you don't always see, as you say. There's always a lot of Dutch drivers around as well. There's the big community there, but it's good to see that we're getting loads of different nationalities on there and involved in sim racing. It's certainly something that is sort of open to, well, really anyone who's able to get into it, which is nice to see. And the fact that you can also race with people all over the different country. We have Akeem there, who's obviously from Malaysia as well. So he's completely on the other side of the world to lots of these drivers, but he's still able to come into these races and race there, safely from like an internet and connection point of view as well. It's great that we can get that from people all over the world.
It's one of the great things about sim racing, that you don't have to have a LAN event. We don't all have to end up in the same position, the same place. We can all just turn on the computer, download RaceRoom on Steam and think, right, I fancy doing myself some racing. You can get yourself one of those starter packs, and boom, before you know it, you are battling out time and time again with some of your mates, and to be honest, some people that you might hate for the rest of your life. I think we've all got a small list of those. One of
we've all got a story there.
Roger, he sat right beside me.
I'm sure.
We were teammates once, and once only for a reason.
And we won the championship.
We did win the well, yeah, you won the championship.
We won the teams as well.
Bill Krause won as a team.
Yeah, Phil Krause won as a team. Big shout to Phil Krause.
We just cruised around and hoped for the best. Hewitt would have won as a team championship, though.
Would I?
With his controller.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have a
think
wheel.
He'd be keyboard.
One day we are going to have a commentators race somewhere, and Ewan is going to get himself a wheel, and he's going to set purple sectors.
I do have one. I just don't have the
Facilities.
I don't have the facilities for it.
What wheel do you have?
Oh, I don't even know. I forgot.
He doesn't even know the name of it. That's
No, I
amazing.
Oh my goodness. Don't get me wrong, I'm not very good when someone shows me this and I'm like, it's a DFGT? I don't know. But I know the wheels that I've had. So it's kind of like, take responsibility for your own actions, mate.
Yeah, well, yeah, I probably should, but I don't, so that's nice. But
Classic you and O'Leary.
Thank you. No, but yeah, it's I honestly don't know, but it doesn't really matter because I just talk about racing instead.
That's nice. What microphone do you have?
Oh, I don't know.
Exactly. I knew you weren't going to know that. I knew you.
This is probably a better question. Ewan, what do you know?
Oh, my own name.
God, terrible. Either way, let's focus on the Razor Hangers. Bouchard's been into the pit lane, so at least we have that we can talk about. Go, give us some facts on that one, Ewan.
Well, yeah, he's driven down the pit lane. He's stopped for a bit, and he's got out again. Back to you.
Well, this is great banter. It really is. Hour and 12 minutes into the race, so that's a decent stretch.
That's good. I mean,
Really
fair
good.
play. We'll see how it works out though, because he's obviously got a lot, or he had obviously a lot shorter stop. He's still back down in 17th position now, and it's one of those things. He went almost so long that he probably lost time doing it to save that amount of fuel. I would say from averaging out, because now obviously he's stopped, but he's not lighter necessarily than anyone else, because you know they've still got the same amount of time to the end of the race. So I don't know if that's going to help him at all in any way, but we will certainly obviously find out how this one is going to work for him. But 17th place at the moment. Someone's gone off there, coming over the top of the mountain. Heusman, that's not a nice place to have the spin either, right on the apex. Hopefully the car's coming around. That is so close, but unfortunately they managed to just be okay, but all over the gravel.
Connery Maddock will be screaming at that rejoin. That was not great. Kind of what do you do in those kind of situations, though? You know, when you're kind of in an awkward spot. We had one yesterday, actually. It was at Reed Park, where there was a car perpendicular to the track as the leads were coming through. That, it woke us up, didn't it?
Yeah, it's so awkward anywhere on the mountain really going for a spin, because there's almost it's quite hard to turn your car around anyway if you're just on your own, as we're about to see here with Nazo. Look at this, it's so difficult to get your car turned around when you're on your own. Never mind with cars coming through. 3-point turn, it was going to be a 5-point turn in a minute, and yeah, thankfully this is the next car, Johnny Bissett, a lot further down the road. Thankfully for the Italian, he can get himself turned around hopefully by this point. Now, is he back facing in the right direction? Well, only now. So you see the point. It's so hard, and that's arguably one of the wider points of the mountain. It's hard to get yourself turned back around again, back going in the right direction when there aren't cars flying past you left, right and centre. So it's very difficult for Heusman really to know what to do there. He can't just vanish, and unfortunately Georgiev did pay the price for that, had to go off at McPhillamy and lost a place to Burchard, who's up to 15th.
When you said 3-point turn, I thought that was going to be a bit ambitious. Race cars and such are not kind on their steering locks, and that one was always going to be a bit rough. You know, not everyone runs of course 9 degrees of rotation and stuff, which by the way for Ewan is how far the wheel can turn.
I did know that, thanks.
Okay, good one. But with it being, most people are kind of running 360 to 450, something in that vein, it doesn't provide you much in the term of what you can actually put on a bit like that. So it makes sense that you're literally going to reverse straight into the barrier, hoping to get out of the way.
Yeah, and also sort of a bit of science is the faster that you're going, the less steering lock that you need in that regard. So the cars aren't designed to go around such tight corners, because even the elbow, it is on this track the tightest corner, but the speed that you're going around it, you don't have to take that steering lock. But then when you go to literally 0 kilometers an hour trying to go away, you just don't have the ability to get around that. And I think, to be honest, I think he did pretty well. He was just fortunate that there wasn't a whole train of cars steaming past. Otherwise, he would have been out of this race.
There's that motorsport engineering degree paying its way.
Yeah.
Nice work there as we ride on.
Where's your degree,
towards-
Lewis?
Pardon?
Oh,
Pardon? Where's your degree? You don't have it yet.
No, I don't have
Pipe
mine
down,
either.
sir.
I'm doing my dissertation.
No, you can't do. You can't down there at the moment. I think we might even be more north than he is right now.
Yes. I'm half a decade younger though, so that's why I haven't got mine yet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mate, you know you're clutching at straws when you go half a decade.
Yeah, but he's making it.
I'm making it sound, making it sound
Sounds really
massive when in
extreme.
reality, it's not a big difference. So yeah, there we are. But yeah, well done, Cam.
Well done. Well, it's all right, mate. You are going to have it one day when someone is going to absolutely start dominating sim racing, and they were born in like the year 2015, and it is going to be a sobering reality.
Mate,
It's-
that is, we're going to be old when people are born in 2015 are doing that.
I don't think we will. No, because I mean, come on. There's already teams like Unicorns of Love and such that have 14-year-olds and stuff that are battling.
Oh, that's
when
crazy.
you really think about that for a second, that means they were born in 2008, and I'm like, not okay with that.
Yeah, that is not good because I remember 2000. I could tell you things that happened in 2008. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But also, we mentioned this earlier about sim race, about the nationalities as well, but also with the age. Like the fact that you can have people literally in their early teens, as well as I know plenty of drivers in their 50s even who like to come out here. You know, Mark Hutchison being one of those drivers as well. Loves the old oh, as in the wall there for Heisman. But yeah, certainly the older drivers can get involved as well because you don't have to have that physical ability still as you would in a real life car.
Ken Hunter was someone I remember racing with. Unfortunately, he has passed away maybe the last year or so. But he was, when I was racing, he was 73.
Wow.
And was still racing. Now, don't get me wrong, was not competitive, right? You're
Fair
not going to
play.
win any races, but still was 73. HSO, Historic Sim Racing Online. Obviously, it's all old classic cars and stuff. Oh, that's a big crash pad for McCoonin. That is a big one. I have been in that barrier before. It does take some effort to get down there. That does seem as though even maybe it might be a technical issue because it's gone straight on and hasn't been able to get back going, Ewan.
Yeah, the fact he's not reversed is a bigger sign to me that that is certainly not a driver in control of his car at the minute, because you surely get out, even though there is going to be a lot of damage on that car and he has gone back to the pit lane now. There is a lot of damage on that car. You would try and get back in the race as quickly as possible, but yeah, just very weird. I don't know if his brake pedal has broke in terms of actually physically, or something kind of more internal has happened somewhere along the line, but yeah, straight on at the final corner and won't be returning, unfortunately.
First time I was battling for a championship, we came here to Bathurst, it's V8 Supercars, and I was so focused on the battle that I was in that we got up to some back markers. I was in a comfortable enough position in the championship, and I was like, nope, I'm going to charge my way past these back markers, and I was braking 50 metres too late into that corner, and I went straight on and went straight into the barrier. And as I'd reversed out and got back going again, I was like, that's it. That's the well, yeah. It's just like I was cost myself a champion doing something so stupid. I didn't cost myself a champion. Apparently, I had my teammate behind who managed to hold the entire train up. Here's a Gaya Gortner though, who's under pressure from Sokovikov, who's got down to the inside, going through the chase. A bit of side by side between the two. The M6 coming out on top now, but the commitment on the brakes from Gaya Gortner just going to keep his Mercedes ahead for now.
And he's holding on to that nicely, coming down towards the final corner as well. Amazing talent there on the brakes. Sokovikov had that top line, straight line speed. You just saw it in that second half of the straight. He really motored past that Mercedes, but unfortunately wasn't confident enough on those brakes into that corner. But maybe as we get up the straight towards turn 2, Griffin's Bend, he might be able to have a little bit of a better run, because that BMW certainly seems on that straight like had a little bit more top speed.
No, it did. I mean, like I said, it was a good little effort, but I just, you've got to throw it in the brakes. You've got to understand your advantages in the car. Sokovikov's going to get another one, but Gaya Gortner holds the inside lines. He's got to be around the outside, and we've seen it time and time again. When you're there, you're not going to make it stick. You've got to be alongside and even slightly ahead once you touch the brake pedal going into Griffin's Bend. And Ewan, like I say, you said it earlier about understanding not only your car but everyone else's, and right now that's exactly what Sokovikov needs to do to get in with the Mercs and the Audis that are running first through sixth.
Yeah, it's obviously unsuccessful the last couple of attempts here, but very encouraging signs for him here, actually, looking at the straight line speed, especially down Mountain Straight there towards turn 2. Not a straight where you can, it's fairly long, but you're not going to gain from too far back down that straight. However, that BMW was still able to pull at least alongside into turn 2. So if he can stay close enough down the mountain here, then he will have a very good go into the chase. Let's see how it goes through the elbow. Very close on the entry here, actually, and all he needs is a decent exit. Doesn't even need an astonishing one, and he will be right there. So he's got the slipstream now, and he's got a straight line speed advantage as well. Expect another go, and even more, possibly a more successful attempt in the chase this time around.
Well, big time on the slipstream, looks to the outside once again, all the squeezes there, uses that tarmac and then fires in all the way around the outside, holds the inside line, but the commitment on the brakes from Gael Gortner, seen this time and time again in battles previous, still side by side, and that is the position done from Sokovikov. That was absolutely superb. Tried the inside the lap before the outside this lap, but does manage to hang on down towards Murray's, does hang on completely for 6th position. I think he might be able to breathe. The straight line speed of the M6 does seem to be better than that of the AMG behind. That was a nice, tidy little bit of racing.
Certainly was. It obviously had a tiny bit of door banging, but no real pushing and shoving as such. But now, as we're coming up the straight once again, has the Mercedes got anything on that straight line speed of this M6 GT3 car all the way up towards Griffin's Bend? He's just thinking about it. He's thinking about it. He's going to dive to the left. Is he going to dive to the right? No, he's just going to back out of that one for now and going to stay close over the top of the mountain before we get down onto the Conrad straight once again.
Might be able to attack coming down on that Conrad, but if the straight line speed of the M6 is as fast as we were kind of seeing there, and no slipstream playing its part, but still, it did look mighty quick on the Conrad straight unit.
Yeah, it really did. As I said at the time, didn't need a particularly good exit, really. Oh, my word. Oh, they're having a terrible time of things there. Through Reed Park, hard to see. I think just lost the rear, didn't he, really? And now, all of a sudden, he's going to have a lot of trouble from Petter Daniel. But yeah, that M6 certainly very strong in a straight line there. Was able to absolutely maul the Mercedes. And I'd expect Daniel to be able to make his way through on Ortner on the next lap as well, probably.
Yeah, that was a not a great moment from Gael Gortner, who didn't qualify particularly well, but has worked his way up the order bit by bit through the race. As he runs inside the top 10 with a 7th place finish. By the way, just to update you on your race leaders, whilst they were close out of the pit lane, Latkovsky holding on to a 6-second advantage. Felipe Caneo separated by just 2 seconds over 3rd and 4th. Vigneron by himself in 5th spot, and now Sokovikov, the freshly promoted driver, up into 6th place in the race.
Yeah, certainly the first couple of drivers there, they've really sort of stood out from the field over the course of this Bathurst 2 hours. Still obviously half an hour left in the race for that to change, but they've just been so consistent out of the front. There's really been this midfield battle that we've been going on with, and one of the drivers we've been focusing on in the last sort of 20 minutes or so is Burchard here, 14th position. He was down in 17th after his pit stop, but he's made up some positions, and the important point for him now is that he's got an 8-second gap to Burns ahead of him. So if he can make that up over the course of the last few sort of half an hour or so, then obviously he'll be able to get himself up into that top 13.
Of course, the last car to come into the pit lanes, we don't know whether they've gone down for maybe later tyres and such, or trying to aim for being a bit stronger later in the race, as you said. I don't know what the right strategy is around here. I mean, maybe it was pitting around the halfway point in the race, a couple of laps either side of it. Whatever Drovosekov did on that pit stop to close down the 1 second, fair enough. But Latkovsky has just, I think he's just been burning more fuel, maybe burning more tyres, had to take an extra tyre or something, whatever, in the pit stop. Whatever he's doing, Latkovsky is in control today, and the only person that can beat Latkovsky is Latkovsky. We have seen that before, though, from a few drivers and teams recently, even some of the most experienced teams in sim racing. I mean, was it me and you in the booth when we were doing, Cam, we were doing the Nürburgring 24, and Coanda, one of the biggest teams in sim racing, according to Arjuna, the biggest team in sim racing, that's what's that red line, leading by a country mile, and then they dropped it.
It can happen. It's not just because you're in the lead, that doesn't mean that you're sort of guaranteed to be there. You still have to do the laps. You've still got to do every single, braking point, every single gear shift to to get yourself to the end of the race. It's not easy. Get yourself in a rhythm, of course, and it gets to a point where you're almost driving subconsciously because you're just that much in the zone. But you can very easily just make a bit of a mistake, just go a little bit too wide as Georgiev does that, hits the wall on the outside. We've seen a number of cars do that, but that's all it takes. And if you just hit it slightly at the wrong angle, you're going to be losing the race lead and then potentially not be able to get it back.
Yeah, complacency really is the enemy, isn't it? And when even over a 2-hour race, we more speak about it in endurance racing, 24s and whatnot, but even in races that are only 20 minutes long, 10, whatever they are, whatever the race distance, complacency is the enemy in a race like this.
Yeah, I think it is in any distance really. It doesn't matter how long for, you can certainly undo yourself very quickly with a bit of complacency, as we see this battle for 11th just developing at the moment. Grunig and Andreasen. Andreasen has been very good in this race, I have to say, and so has his compatriot Burchard. They've both been making up a lot of places. That was the worst kind of lunge, though, a half-hearted one down the inside at the final corner. Grunig was able to just about give him enough room, and Andreasen really wasn't sure about it at all, and so he stays behind for now. But yeah, he's still in that position, as we're seeing a problem for Rui Felipe by the looks of things. He's dropped out of the top three and he's dropping down the order very quickly all of a sudden.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're absolutely spot on. The Portuguese driver that was going so well earlier on in that Audi R8 that's presently now in 4th position. I think there has been some very serious issues. It was comfortably, he was comfortably in 3rd. Whatever has gone on, I think might have caused some damage, and despite having 10 seconds back, that's the gap that we'll kind of keep an eye on. 10 seconds or 9 now towards Vigneron, who's in 5th spot. I don't know, it's so easy to make a mistake by yourself right now. We've literally just had an entire conversation about it.
It certainly is, and 10 seconds is very difficult to get back on pure speed when it's sort of a guy right next to you in the positions. You are so close on pace at that point of the field. It's not going to be easy at all for him to come back from that one. But the battles continue as we head towards the final half an hour here in Bathurst. And Petter Daniel on the back of Georg Ottner is going to be really trying to work his way up the field. He was a bit higher up in the battle of 5th position at one point in the race, dropped down during the pit stop sequence, and is now trying to come back up into 7th position for this moment in time. And if he does that and has some good speed, he might still be able to get Sokovikov ahead of him, because it's only about a second and a half up the road.
Yeah, Georg has dropped off Sokovikov naturally after that sort of little love tap on the wall down at Reed Park, Frog Hollow, that kind of section of the circuit. Just went a little bit too wide, but we were catching it from the low front onboard, so we can see zero of how much of the car actually made contact with the barrier. I do love that angle, though. It's absolutely superb. You really get an idea of the undulation around this circuit. So much climbing happens around here, and like you say, I'm not so sure if Georg Ottner's car's slightly damaged here, Ewan, or whether it's just maybe his confidence is a bit bruised.
I think there might be, there's certainly a case for both. I think, obviously, if you think back to the pit stop cycle, he was running just kind of in arrears to the group. He was actually in 9th for most of the first part of the race. We had Vigneron, Sokovikov, Daniel and Alexandra battling. He was kind of lurking in behind. He eventually got on towards the end of the final, the first hour. But he didn't seem to have quite the pace of those four. He just seemed to be closing because they were fighting so much. And during the pit stop phase, he did get up into 6th place. I do wonder, though, whether the actual raw pace is beginning to shine through now that everybody is more or less running on their own and their true pace is coming forward. Ottner does seem to be, the kind of lack of pace that he's got relative to the others does seem to be showing a little bit. And I think it is purely down to that is making him drop some places. However, of course, there may be a bit of damage, and obviously we've talked about this circuit being in the rhythm versus being out of it and struggling to find it again. Those two things could be a factor as well.
Daniel looked, but the brakes that's on that Merc seem to be well in control. We saw it in the battle between Georg Ottner and Sokovikov when he was keeping the Russian at bay. Kind of, it almost looked comfortable, didn't it? With the safe knowledge that I know that if you're going to look at inside outside of me, I've got the braking power to keep you at bay regardless.
And there's certainly a fair sort of step in the difference of performance in the race on some of these cars, and the confidence that you can have with that is very important. But the straight line speed of the BMW and the Bentley, as we've been speaking about, is very good indeed as we come up towards Griffin's Bend for another time. Daniel, looking towards the outside, we've seen already this isn't the place to actually make the move, but what you do is you slow down potentially the car ahead of you, put them slightly off the line, and then just, you can sort of say a bit closer on the exit as we come up towards the cutting. The issue is at this point of the track, you come up to the mountain, all the corners that come with that as well. This is the point of the track, you just got to stay close and hope that the driver ahead of you makes a tiny mistake that gives you a run as you come out of the elbow.
I mean, I'd be all over you 99% of the time around most circuits. You kind of want to get them offline because that's where you can make the opportunity. There was another little brush on the wall from Gail Gortner as they just dipped at Frog Hollow. Everywhere else in the calendar, absolutely, you're 100% right. Here, not so sure. Not so sure on that one. I would want to keep my competitor at least through Griffin's Bend and into the cutting. Look, okay, you're still leading up in the mountain. You keep on it, because otherwise we're going to lose a whole heap of time, aren't we, Ian?
Yeah, it's obviously side-by-side battling always loses your time, but it's the effect is really exaggerated at this circuit because it's so narrow and so difficult to go side-by-side. So yeah, you do ideally want to stay behind going into the cutting, but when it gets down to it towards the end of especially a long race, you do see moves there, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But I think in this situation it is probably, well, we're getting towards the time where Daniel will be going for that kind of move. It just depends where else he gets the opportunity. If we're thinking the Merc is going to be loads better on the brakes into the big braking zones at the Chase and Griffin's Bend, where he's never going to get the inside line either, then he's kind of got to go for it somewhere strange. And he might have a go into turn one.
Oh, that's a bit of a brave one though for Peter Daniel. I mean, that was well covered off from Gail Gortner. Ortner's way too deep into Hell Corner though, and that Bentley may well just come back for another little bite on that Merc. Up mountain straight as we go over the rise and then back down just before we climb once again towards Griffin's Bend. The undulation up and down. Gail Gortner with the inside line, and that Bentley's never going to make that one stick. And an enthralling little battle here for 7th place, which always, if you want to see some more enthralling battles, we've got plenty here on RaceRoom, including coming up in the RaceRoom Ranked Championship. We brought it up a few times. 2,000 people have already entered for it, and for your chance, well, we'd certainly recommend to do so. It looks like a lot of fun racing out there, doesn't it? I mean, 3 different categories. We've said it before, visiting 4 different circuits, or 6 different circuits, I think it is, over the season. Multiple rounds. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, certainly is. Going to be going to the Nürburgring, Spa-Francorchamps, Zandvoort and Watkins Glens over the months of May and June as well, every couple of weeks. 3 different classes with the GT3s, GT4s and the BMWs M235i's as well. So racing for everyone. If you just sign up yourself, you can obviously go into that Rookies Championship with the M235i's. If you've got a reputation over 75, you can go into GT4s and reputation over 80. You can get yourself into that GT3 category as we see the cars here. So you can work your way up and get yourself in. Obviously, the plan is to have multiple of these seasons over the course of the year as well. So you'll be able to sort of see what you do in this 4 race series, and then later on in the year, maybe work your way up and fight a bit higher in a different championship as well. So certainly, if you are new to RaceRoom, get yourself involved with that BMW M235i. A lot more of a more comfortable car to start your RaceRoom experience with, and then maybe one day you'll be in one of these battles, chasing towards the front positions, as we see here. Ortner still holding on to that 7th place.
And of course, the top split in each of those, all 3 of those categories, we will be broadcasting the race as well. So, you know, it might be the first chance for some of these drivers to have a broadcast race, which, I mean, sometimes is a positive and, sometimes not so much. But for myself, as Greg Cameron and Ewan O'Leary here in the commentary booth, we always like talking about new drivers, new names, new talents to join into the sim racing world, and great battles as well that we see with them, including ones like this one. Gail Gortner still managing to keep Daniel at bay. We're very excited, aren't we, Ewan, for the RaceRoom Ranked Championships?
Yeah, it is going to be very exciting, very entertaining indeed. Starting in 5 days, I think, the first race on Wednesday. So looking forward to that, and yeah, hope to see some good battles as well. I have to say, the BMW category does excite me. Single mate category, of course, but those can be very exciting indeed, because everyone's in the same machinery, of course. GT3 and GT4 has its own charm, but single make racing never disappoints either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for a bit of single make championship because it's all even. It's even Stevens. We like ourselves, races like this where everyone's in different cars, and I'm all for it. If either side, there's room in racing for both of them. But in this, where we've got something open, where you can see drivers appearing in something like the Ferrari and giving it a go, others in the Callaway and stuff, and it's a nice, vibrant rid of not only liveries but also manufacturers as well. But sometimes we like to simplify things a little bit, stick everyone in the same car and see who really is the best.
If you want to get yourself involved, registration for round 1 closes on 15th of May, which is already in 2 days' time on Sunday. Literally just around the corner before the race. As Ewan says, next week on the 18th of May. So do get yourself involved from the RaceRoom experience. Get yourself on Steam and then find all the information that you need either on the website or within the game and the competition pages of that as well. So you can get yourself involved in these races. You'll find people of a similar ability as well with the split system that will be involved with that one. And as Lewis has mentioned, the top 24 in each of those 3 classes will be having their top split streamed here. So we're looking forward to that with us 3 separating the commentary over the course of the season.
Which, for me, again, if you're not going to take part for whatever reason, because let's be honest, that's a great opportunity to go for a bit of fun as Daniel looks again to the outside of Ortner, but is still unable to make that pass. But if you can't, for whatever reason, take part, then just join us. Just join us and watch the event with us, because we always like having you along, as that's a little bit of a snap there from Peter Daniel. We always enjoy having you along so we can have arguments as to whether the chase is a chicane. It's not, but we can have arguments whether it is or not.
It is.
We can talk about whether Bathurst is the greatest racetrack on the planet or whether it's the Nordschleife. If you say the Nordschleife, as much as it is one of the greatest things to drive on the planet, a greatest racetrack, it is not. Sorry. Harsh opinion, but I love the Nordschleife, but Bathurst is king. Come on. Ewan O'Leary will probably say it's the Nürburgring Grand Prix because he's weird like that.
Oh my God! No, I actually agree with you on this as well. By the way, for this on this particular occasion, don't get used to it, but I do on this occasion. I do want to bring something up, by the way, in terms of the race that I know you won't have seen, Lewis, and Cam as well. Actually, we'll look at this battle first because it's slightly more pressing. Ortner defending again from Peter Daniel. Which way is he going to go this time? Inside line for the kink on the straight. Is it going to be enough though? Very tight on the curb. Didn't really want to get all over that curb and get himself out of the race, so did he? So just tapped the brakes ever so slightly before the chicane, so as not to have an accident, basically. So Ortner will stay in front. Just want to talk about Rizzo, who we saw go straight on at this corner here not so long ago, hearing that he's had a game crash, unfortunately, which sent him straight on completely and out of this race.
That's a bit of a shame. Obviously, a little while ago for Michele Rizzo, but joining the retirements list, which sees Connor down there, Martin, Rocco, Vinaroli, and of course Schubeck, Akeem. Joining the retirement list as well not too long ago, Rizzo, Nazo and Pavel McConan. The side-by-side continues as Peter Daniel gets to the outside once again. And as we've seen for the last 3 or 4 attempts, as there is a bit of a slide, I was going to say, it's basically like banging your head against the wall. But when you put out a slide like that, he's trying some things, maybe a bit desperate though.
It's difficult doing the same thing lap after lap, because right now, Daniel, he's gone to that left-hand side of turn 2 as Ortner there goes into the wall. But he's now learned where he needs to brake, where he needs to be on the track for him to be able to defend this position. And it's certainly not the nicest position for Daniel to be in now, because he's got to try something different at different points. He's got to sort of a stagnant position in this battle. He needs to pull something out of the bag, maybe in a slightly different position of the track for him to be able to make that move nicely, because otherwise it's going to be a little bit difficult for him to continue on trying the same thing, because eventually it's not going to work as he gets very close here into the elbow. This could be a run down towards the chase.
I mean, very close again. It's just about that drive off, which I don't know about you, but it just didn't seem quite as punchy. Really, as much as it'll be close in the slipstream, Georg Ortner goes from one side to the other and then back there. There is a massive crown in this road as well, obviously to keep the water off of it during the wet weather season and such. Now to the outside, keeping it really, really tight. Might throw it down on the brakes, but the Merc is so good on the brakes. Gail Gortner with it, maybe a little bit deep, but either way, Ortner is fighting so hard right out to keep away. He's having a lot of fun out there, isn't he, Ewan?
Yeah, but I imagine it is quite a fun battle to be involved with, although maybe frustrating for Petter Daniel at this stage. He's had a number of opportunities here into turn number 1, but he doesn't seem to want to take any of them. By the looks of things, he had a go on the inside not so long ago, outside line this time, but he breaks early and goes for the switchback line. Now, surely this is the opportunity. I know he's got the outside line for Griffin's Bend, but he's got the legs on the straight. The Bentley is stronger. Is his car far enough alongside? Is it far enough ahead to really go into turn 2? Not really. The Mercedes top end has kind of pegged him back, and so he's not going to be able to do it once more. Switchback line once again. He pushes the Mercedes basically out of turn 2, but there's no chance to have a dive at the cutting, and so he stays behind once again. It must be maybe a little bit of fun, but possibly very infuriating actually for the Bentley driver.
I mean, frustrating for sure in Daniel's point of view. I mean, we were saying about this yesterday about being in a car that's gripping well, and essentially, in a case to dumb it down, into Formula One terms, in a sense, high downforce versus low downforce. A car that's better in straight line speed versus a car that's better in corners. It's a thrilling and entertaining battle to watch, more so from a curiosity point of view and what's being delivered. But there are different ideas and different opinions as to which side you want to be. I think from memory, you wanted to be on the better cornering car. I always said I wanted to be in the car that is the bullet in a straight line. I don't know about you, Cam, but
I like a car in a straight line because you have the ability to either overtake or defend. As obviously, as long as your car is still good enough in the corners, but I'd rather the extra percent or so in a straight line, as we're getting a bit of potential side-by-side action as we come down towards the chase. Is Ortner going to be able to hold on once again? This time Daniel to the inside of the chase. That's going to be the outside towards the chicane. Ortner, a little bit of door banging as we get towards the first apex, and he manages to hold on once again. Those brakes serving him really well.
Yeah, it really is indeed. And once again, I think Daniel might take a look once more down into the final corner. He's quite close, but not close enough. I always preferred a car that was faster at straight line speed because it required less talent to keep the car behind at bay, which is right up my alley as a touring car specialist. Zero talent. It's just hope for the best on a daily basis. The tight entry though into Hell Corner from Gail Gortner might open him up again, but we know he's going to keep it over to the right hand side of the track, will be the left hand side of the shot once we look at them in the braking zone going down into Griffin's Bend, and he should be able to hang on once again. But Ewan, he's quite close.
Yeah, he's quite close once again, but no way through once again here for Daniel. Now this is the opportunity into the cutting, outside line again, although this is going to be quite tricky as well as it gets quite narrow. He tries to hang it around there, doesn't want to find himself in the wall. And so Ortner stays in front once again. Daniel with another switchback. He's on the outside line, possibly coming up into Reed Park, but he's not going to be able to make the move here. And he's going to basically push the Mercedes across the top of the mountain. Outside line for Sullivan Park. My goodness, that would be aggressive, but he's not gone for it. Ortner offline, maybe into McPhillamy. That would be very brave. And so he doesn't go for it there either, pushing the Mercedes as they go downhill now.
I mean, switchback into switchback into switchback. I mean, it didn't work, but I mean, good effort. That was a good little bit of banter. That was. I mean, it was never going to work. You were trying to make it side by side over the top of the mountain. It's just you're asking for trouble. But sometimes you've got to try as a racing driver.
Now, I think either the final turn or the first turn is the place that he's going to be able to do it. This part of the track we've seen he's able to get close, but he hasn't been able to get it confirmed by the time we get to that point as we go just a little bit further up the road. Actually, Sokovikov is getting close to that battle, but we'll just focus on this battle as we come through the chase. Once again, he's going to be looking towards the outsides, get covered off though, and that's going to be good for Ortner to hold on. But I think this potentially is a point where Daniel needs to send it. He's so close to the car ahead. If he gets a little look down the inside, he just needs to flick left, send it down the inside, get his Bentley there. But it's obviously difficult to do so with the Mercedes being so good on the brakes, but also potentially turn one is an option to do that as well.
Alexandra also closing in that Ferrari in the background and might be knocking at the door of this battle in the very near future as we approach the final 15 minutes of the race here in the Bathurst 2-hour on RaceRoom Racing Experience. And I agree with you. I think for the next couple of laps, Daniel needs to stop trying to fight into the chase. Kind of let Gail Gortner do his thing, but stick to the racing line and try something else to try and put him offline maybe to try and make the move down into the final corner. Once again, he looks to the outside and might try the up and under, but that Merc is strong enough to keep him at bay, Ewan. And like I say, that Ferrari, I think it might make this a cheeky three-way fight for 7th place.
Yeah, certainly Alexander is getting involved now, but I've watched this battle and find myself just wishing that Peter Daniel would just be a little bit more aggressive maybe on the back of that Mercedes, because he's getting into the right positions, he's getting into some good places, but he's not using it. He's had a couple of opportunities over the last few laps to maybe have a cheeky send down the inside of, like Cam says, maybe the final corner, maybe turn 1, especially turn 1, there's been a couple of chances. But he's just not been aggressive enough, not been late enough on the brakes, and he's decided not to go for it. I just, you know, is he waiting for? My goodness, Alexander was pushing it there, and he looks like he spun. And Fabrice is going to have the chance here very soon to gain a place, quite possibly.
That is suboptimal for Alexander after really fighting hard to close down into this move. Just dropped it a little bit. I think he's got back going again as we'll head back up to Sokovikov, battling with Vigneron now to the outside of that Mercedes and around there. Is that hanging on or is that going for the move?
I think that was going for the move, actually. I think he was able to get that. Let's see. One car's overtaken Mercedes. Can the Bentley this time on the outside? That could be good if he can hold it, but he can't quite. He's just going to be squeezed out a little bit. But once again, we come towards this final corner. He's lost a couple of car lengths, though, but certainly the Sokovikov was able to get past a Mercedes, so it certainly is possible, but Orner's doing a really good job to hold on at this moment in time.
Yeah, the M6 is fast in a straight line. This move for Peter Daniel does need to be a good move, a beautiful move, like a good sunrise. Needs to be absolutely spot on for Daniel right now, but I just don't know where those opportunities are. He's just not being afforded the right place at the right time.
No, not at the moment. I mean, yeah, he's giving it goes once again, but not able to. Maybe a dive down. This would be quite a lunge, so he's not going to do it there. But yeah, stays behind for now. Indeed, that battle we were seeing for 4th place, which is getting very close. It was Sokovikov getting through on Vigneron, who's falling apart a little bit in the final few moments, or indeed the BMW who's beginning to rise to the fore. But either way, that battle has now changed, and Rui Felipe, who was in 3rd not so long ago, fairly comfortably, now drops to 4th after some kind of problem. Caneo is in that final podium place, and all of a sudden, a top 5 is almost in danger for the Portuguese driver. So, yeah, I don't know why or how he's dropped back quite so quickly, because he was challenging for 2nd in the first hour, but all of a sudden his top 5 position is under threat.
Must have picked up some damage at some point earlier on in this stint. Obviously, when he dropped down, we never really saw what happened to Felipe, what cost him the position to Caneo, because he dropped about 10 seconds in that position and has continued to hemorrhage time. So I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark and suggest that either something isn't quite right on those tyres or potentially there is some damage on that car. I mean, 2 and 2 around here. I know we shouldn't trust the commentator's maths, but that's a pretty easy one, Cam.
Yes, certainly is. But what's not easy is Daniel trying to get past side by side once again into the chase. A little bit dab of the brakes actually that time around. So he sort of backed out that move early. But I do think this corner, the final corner, is going to be a place he's going to have to get a run, be so close behind him, just flick to the left and get down the inside. Obviously, it's easier said than done with how close these guys are racing. The fact that he stayed this close behind, I do think he's the faster driver. If he can get ahead into clean air, he'll probably be able to hold on. Unfortunately for him, Orno is doing a really good job out there, so hopefully he can, his sake, he can hold on. Coming up towards 10 minutes to go now, so that's really about 5 laps or so around this track. 5 more opportunities to come into this corner up towards turn 2.
I mean, it should really be 6 for them based on where they are, but let's see what Peter Daniel can do. Looks to the outside once again, and is definitely not alongside enough, and I think even he knows that, as he'll just commit to his standard braking point, tries to go up and under, nearly breathes on the rear end of the big AMG, but the much bigger Bentley still not able to get through. I agree with you. I think Gail Warner is doing a brilliant job here, just absolutely soaking up the pressure from behind and thinking, yeah, I mean, it's cool and all that you're in a Bentley, but I've been in racing for quite a while and I don't really care about that, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, you do have to credit the defending. Well, I have been criticising Daniel for not being aggressive enough, but you can't take any credit away from Ortner for his defence of this 7th place. It has been very good so far, and he's still got, what, 10 minutes to go? I think 5 laps at the line for these guys, as Lepkowski comes over the line about now. Yeah, there's 5 laps to go, 5 more opportunities for Daniel to go through, and if he was a bit closer here, he might have a bit more of a chance, because that was quite a narrow entry to Forest Elbow from Ortner, but Daniel not close enough on this occasion to really take advantage of it. He has let a few car limps open up over this last lap.
I think Grillick's also had a couple of issues because he was ahead of Bouchard, and Andreasen has dropped back now to 15th position. So there's a couple of issues a bit further down. Alexandra after the spin, by the way. There's a big send down the inside. It's going to be way too deep for the brakes of the Bentley, but he does manage to pull it up to the apex. Somehow doesn't fire it straight over. Gail Gortner does manage to get back through. That was a bold little attempt there. It was so last minute. I don't even think he even really attempted that one properly.
He was a lot closer to the tarmac at the end of it than I thought he was going to be. Yeah. I really thought he was going off there into the gravel trap, but that is the element of surprise that he needs to try to make this overtake stick. He sat behind, didn't really look like he was going to make it, but then as we've been mentioning, he flicked towards the left-hand side and managed to get his car there. This time around, though, coming up towards turn 2, can he do a similar thing? The issue is Ortner, he knows he can just stay there, because even if he uses that racing line all the way on the inside, he's going to be able to hold on to that. Such is the way of this corner. If you're wide, you are just going into the wall.
Don't worry, mate. You have the second highest grade of English in the commentary booth. Ewan, I'm pretty sure, has the highest, and I very solidly have the lowest. So don't worry. We're all progressing somehow. Either way, over the hour and 52 minutes that's been completed this race so far, we've had some intrigue and interest. Latkovsky crosses the line with 8 minutes left to go, so it'll be 4 laps from this point, and in dominant fashion is running away with it. It's been around 10.7 seconds back to Drovasekov, Kaneo behind, and then it's Felipe who's dropping back and is right there with Sokovikov now. I don't know. I don't think he's even going to finish fourth. He might not even finish in the top 5. And I think you're absolutely right. That car is not good right now.
Well, yeah, he is being caught, but Vigneron is actually falling apart a little bit, as I said earlier on, in these final few moments. As you see, Georgiev just holding on around the outside for that 16th position. There's a lot of cars now 1 lap down because of the pace of Latkovsky. And I've got to say as well, another car that's dropping back is Andreasen, back down to 14th, a little bit further down the order. Are we going to see Ortner drop back any further after this battle this time around? Oh, not quite. We very nearly saw Daniel drop out completely. That was a very big moment over the chase, but he's somehow saved it.
Goodness me. I don't know how he kept that one on the road. That was absolutely insane.
That was some live action right there, as he was really trying to hold on. But this is it, turn number 1, all the way towards the pit wall. But Ortner holds off, goes to the inside line here for turn number 1. That's going to be a slow run once again up towards turn number 2. The issue is for Daniel, he needs to get to that inside. He almost did there on the exit, but instead he's going to have to go to the left-hand side, as he has probably about 10 times in a row. And this is the difficult part. He needs to try and get as far alongside as he can, but we do know the outside line is not the way to go at Griffin's Bend, so he needs to try something a little bit different here, and he's getting to that moment of desperation, really, as he's getting towards the final laps in this race.
Schumacher Barrichello, eat your heart out. That one was really squeezed into the pit wall. I'm not a massive fan of that, but it just shows the intensity of this race between the two of them. They're not fighting for a world championship. They're not fighting for the race victory. Just fighting for 7th place. They're just fighting for a bit of fun, to be perfectly honest, Ian, and they're putting on a bit of a show for us this afternoon.
I think Ortner's having fun, but I'm not sure about Daniel. But yeah, hopefully so. It's certainly a challenge to get through here, and Daniel once again pushing very hard over McPhillamy now. Only 3 laps at the line. He is going to start to get desperate. He is going to start to make more moves, more attempts, and possibly more aggressive ones, more assertive ones in these final 5 minutes, because time is really not on his side anymore. Into Forest Elbow once again. It's a tighter line through that corner as Ortner goes slightly wide. Slipstream for the Bentley once again. We've seen this episode before, but is it going to have a different outcome this time?
Potentially not. I don't think that Bentley is close enough to affect a change, but he's been getting braver and braver on the brakes. So who knows what's possible. Once again, very close. Once again, looking to the outside, going through the fast part of the chase. Down into the heavy braking zone, is fully alongside, but that Merc has such good brakes. And Georg Ortner is able to keep it at bay. I think maybe has lost a couple of bits of confidence after some pretty major moments the last 2 laps into the chase.
It's pretty crazy how Ortner's able to get I mean, best part of 2 car lengths really on the brakes there as we come out of that first apex onto the front straight once again. It looks like he's going to be sort of able to hold on at this moment in time, but Daniel's definitely the faster driver, but you just got to find the way past, and you do really have to keep going at it. And we haven't really mentioned, but Orno holding on, the amount of pressure he's under for the sustained amount of time as well, and he hasn't really made a mistake to allow Daniel past, as Daniel once again getting that slipstream towards turn number 2. This is all he can do at this moment in time, is go to that left hand side, make him have a tighter line, and hope that he outbrakes himself, which he hasn't done this time around.
Well, now you've said about mistakes, I'm pretty sure Gary Ortner's due one, because apparently the commentators curses the thing. He's holding the slightly defensive line in the middle of the road on the run into the cutting, hooks it up to the last apex lovely, and as he starts his run, I know I said that a bit weird, I was going to say something else and then I just committed. Wasn't quite as bad as we saying disuse on a broadcast, which still Ewan does bring up on a daily basis, to be perfectly honest. But he's been driving brilliantly. I just think maybe he is going overboard a little bit.
Yeah, well, not entirely sure, really. I mean, I think anything goes at this term in the race. Well, not anything, but you get the idea. Because there's only 2 laps to go towards the end of this now. I mean, we know up front of the field, the top 3 positions are very, very sealed up, but this one probably is the most likely to change in the rest of the field, really. As we come out Forest Elbow again, Ortner is going to be under pressure again, but is he going to be able to hold off again? You get the feeling that he will.
I mean, we've seen this time and time again. I'm pretty sure we could see a copy and paste from the last laps, but he is now taking the inside line. So he is trying something slightly different, but where the crown of the road, where there's a slightly off-camera bit through the kink, it's not ideal. The 2 might come together, just keeping him at bay once again. As we head on to 2 laps to go, Latkovsky is already starting his run over the mountain on the, actually I think he might be well ending his run over the mountain on the penultimate lap of the race. Such is his lead. And he'll be starting the final lap momentarily. It does mean that the opportunities for these guys to pass is getting lower and lower. There is Latkovsky. There is the Forest Elbow section. You can definitely see with the time left. Once he crosses the line, it'll be well under 2 minutes, and we're definitely looking for one more lap.
Yeah, certainly 1.5 laps to go really for the guys behind him, because they've got such a big lead, actually, especially to sort of 4th place or so. That's the gaps have just opened up over the course of the 2 hours. And as you say, under 2 minutes to go now in this 2 hours of Bathurst here for RaceRoom, and it's been a lovely race, and hopefully we can see
thanks man
the end in a nice way. As Latkovsky, as you say, around the corner one more time around the mountain for him.
Now it's for you to try and put on such an accent. I don't think he'd even brave it.
No, you're right.
It was worth a go. It was worth a little go.
You two are going absolutely delirious now. You found yourself in the north of England. It's just absolutely going mad.
It's mad up here. It is mad.
It's no different. Well, not different, but it's fine.
We'll discuss this another time, Ewan. We'll keep our eyes focused on this battle for 7th, as again Ortner is able to keep Daniel at bay. And again, this will be the penultimate attempt for them down into the chase, the penultimate attempt down into the final corner, and it's just about finding that opportunity to pass.
Yeah, and this looks like it's a bit closer for Daniel, actually. It's just when you're so close, you don't get that slingshot effect. But certainly being closer is better for him, because he needs to outbrake him. This time to the inside of the chase, he's going to go. Is this going to be finally the move for Daniel? He knows this is really his penultimate time to do this, but once again, he's not able to get close enough. And I wonder if the shutters are coming down on his race so far.
I don't know. Ewan, do you think he could do it?
Very subtle. I liked it though. Yeah, I mean, no, to be honest, I think Ortner is going to hold on for this 7th position, and he's going to be able to, stay in here. Daniel's going to have another go, possibly into turn 1, but has the door shut ever so slightly into the held corner for the final time. So yeah, Daniel's going to have one more go into the chase and the final corner, you can be sure. But we could honestly be watching replays at this point. It is astonishing the way Ortner's been able to keep Daniel behind this long.
Well, as we'll see this rise up towards the Griffin's Bend, I think Latkovsky is coming down towards the final corner. That's the send. Still not done from Daniel. Still going for the up and under. Latkovsky, whereabouts is the Macedonian on the track at the moment? Our race leader is coming down into the final section of the racetrack, and it has been a dominant display in the Bathurst 2 Hour from Cody Nikola Latkovsky, who is well in control at the mighty mountain. The mighty Mercedes has done the work, and he'll lead his way across the line by 13 seconds. Drovosekov, a long way back, not quite as long as the wait will have to have for Kaneo to come across the line. A dominant performance from the Macedonian. As we'll see, that is all the way back to Kaneo in the Audi. I think his Audi driver, I was going to say Audi compatriot, but obviously they're very different countries, but you know what I mean. You're following my logic here. Felipe is further back, but I think might just be able to hold on from Sokovikov. It might come down to the final corner.
It certainly might. That's getting pretty close. We know how fast that BMW is in a straight line, and that's really going to be the important point for those guys as we're coming all the way down this Conrad Straight for the final time. Petter Daniel, last chance saloon for him. Is he going to go left? Is he going to go right as he comes through the chase? He's going to be on the outside in towards the braking zone. Side by side they go. Orna really pushes him towards the first apex. He holds on. Is Daniel going to dive it down towards the inside? We've seen him being brave on the brakes before, but this is the final chance, final corner time. He's looking, he's thinking about it. He's diving towards the inside. He's going to make it, but is he going to keep it on the road? Yes, he just about does, but Ortner around the outside holds on to that 7th place after an amazing battle between the two.
Well, as an advertisement for the upcoming RaceRoom Ranked Championships, this really is all about it. What a superb race that we've seen between Georg Ortner and Daniel. What a superb race we've seen up and down the grid. Ewan, we've had a quiet one, I think it is a way of putting it, but we've had our fair share of great battles, and what a mighty venue to take it to.
Yeah, absolutely. A very quiet kind of race up the front of the field. But other than that, it was there were battles going on up and down all over the place, which was very entertaining indeed. Daniel obviously gave it a very good go on that final lap. Had to go into the final corner, but not able to do it. Ortner with a very good 7th place there. But yeah, great racing from everybody, really. And just if you want a kind of illustration of the pace from Latkovsky in that race, only 12 cars finishing on the lead lap. Husserman was the final of them. You just saw it there. But we speak about Bathurst being so long and such a large circuit. Only 12 cars on the lead lap. That is down to the pace of Latkovsky, who was never in any kind of difficulty, never under any pressure all day long.
Again, a brilliant drive. You can see there the order: Latkovsky, Drovosekov and Kaneo, your top 3. Filippo and Sokovikov came around in 4th and 5th position. But obviously all of this here to kind of advertise to you the idea of going racing on RaceRoom, and you can go and get your opportunity to do so by just going to Steam, downloading RaceRoom for free. Where you can also go and get yourself some of the lighter content packs at the start, just to get yourself involved in the racing mix, and maybe you yourselves want to join in with the RaceRoom Ranked Champs. We'll head to our Racing Ranked Championships correspondent in Cam Roger to talk us through exactly what you'd have to expect from a championship like that.
Exactly. So the rank system in RaceRoom as well. See the drivers, as you see in that team column, they've got their rating, they've got their reputation that you can build up over the course of these races. And with this ranked championship, it's a 4-race season. We go to the Nürburgring, Spa, Zandvoort and Watkins Glen over the course of the next 6 weeks. And that's already the first round is next week. Registration closes on the 15th of May, which is already Sunday in 2 days' time before the first race on the 18th. All races will be, or the top split races will be broadcasted as well. We've got the rookies, we've got the AMs, and we have the Pro Series for you to race and get yourself involved with through the ranked competition pages of the game.
Well, we won't hold you up too much over your evening, because we have been here for a couple of hours taking over the airwaves, of course, here virtually. I don't know if it is virtual airwaves on YouTube, but either way, we've been having a great little time. Hope you have indeed. Go and get yourselves involved in RaceRoom action. From myself, Lewis McGlade, from Cam Roger and from Ewan O'Leary, we'll wish you a very warm goodbye.